Hello and welcome to episode 42 of Some Like It Real. I'm Bryan.
And I'm Veronica.
And we're two cinephiles who love to talk movies.
We have weekly episodes discussing the newest films, creating lists and drafts, and keeping you updated on the latest movie headlines and awards races.
As a reminder, please like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms, which helps more people find the show.
And share it with any cinephiles in your life.
Today, we are bringing you on an Odyssey as we are reviewing one of the biggest films, if not the biggest of the year, The Odyssey.
Yes, we are extremely excited to share our thoughts on Christopher Nolan's newest film. This one we've all been waiting for. There's a lot to break down, so you don't want to skip on this episode.
We will tell you if you should Ody-see it or Ody-skip it.
But before we do that, let's play some catch-up. We have a lot of news items that we can quickly go through here. First of all, R.I.P. to Sam Neill and to Brenda Fricker. These are both two beloved actors. You know, Sam Neill, obviously Jurassic Park most notably, but lots of favorites in there. And then Brenda Fricker of Home Alone, and I think that these are both big losses for the film acting community. So yeah, Bryan, were you sad to hear about these passings?
I was very devastated, particularly by the passing of Sam Neill. Admittedly, I haven't seen a ton of Sam Neill films. Obviously, Jurassic Park is the masterpiece that it is, and one of the reasons why is because of his performance as Dr. Grant. A recent film from him that I really loved was Taika Waititi's Hunt for the Wilder People, which only came out 10 years ago. I thought he was so great in that film, and I know that throughout the last few years he was battling cancer, and he recently just became cancer-free, so it was really gutting to see the news of his passing. And Brenda Fricker, admittedly another actor whose work I haven't delved much through, but Home Alone 2 is a classic for me. I watch it every Christmas like the first Home Alone. She's very lovely as the pitching lady. She's an Oscar winner. She won for My Left Foot, which also starred Daniel Day-Lewis, who also won an Oscar for that film. I believe I read that she's the first Irish actress to win an acting Oscar, which is really, really cool. But she's also very special to me because of my dearly beloved Angels in the Outfield from the 90s, where she plays the foster mother to Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I loved that film growing up, so seeing clips from that movie throughout the last few days was really, really special to me. These are tremendously talented people who were taken away from us way too soon, and I'm so grateful for the careers that they both have given us, and it's really sad to see two wonderful performers gone at this day and age.
Yeah, shout out to Sam Neill in an early season of Peaky Blinders. I remember him being really good on that recently. And yeah, pour out some birdseed for Brenda Fricker.
Absolutely. Next up in the news front, we are learning about more casting for the Superman sequel, Man of Tomorrow. We recently talked a while back about how Adria Arjona, Matthew Lillard were joining the project. We learned recently that Millie Alcock will reprise her role as Supergirl in the film. But now we have a new addition, and it's one that caught me off guard, certainly. I wasn't expecting to read this when this headline came out. Showa Menedwaya will be reprising his role of Blue Beetle in the film. Blue Beetle came out at a time where people were kind of worn out by superhero films. Not many people saw it, which was really unfortunate because I thought it was a very sweet, endearing, lovable superhero film. It wasn't one of the greatest of the genre that I've seen, but I thought it felt refreshing to the genre. It was entertaining, and James Gunn had labeled this as the first DCU character, even though when this movie came out, the DCEU was still a thing. So it's nice to see that now he's coming into the actual DCU in the Superman sequel. We don't know what his capacity will be in this film, but I'm very excited as someone who did enjoy the film. And I like Showa Menedwaya as an actor. I love Parenthood. I'm a humongous fan of Cobra Kai. So I've been riding hard for this kid for many, many years. I think he's so incredibly talented. And I'm really excited to see how they incorporate his character in this Superman sequel, which I am very excited to see. So what's your stance on this piece of news?
I missed Blue Beetle when it was out in theaters, so I'll definitely catch up on it before this. Yeah, like you said, I think the buzz was kind of that it's, good, not great, and just, I never got the chance to check it out. But yeah, I like this actor. If anything, the only thing that might be concerning to me is, like, I don't want Man of Tomorrow to get too bogged down and, like, we're doing a whole bunch of characters all at once. That's maybe one concern to keep in mind, but, there aren't even that many characters established yet, so hopefully that's something that can all be somewhat manageable, and, I hope we still have a through line of movie here that's not about just like building the universe quite yet. So I've been a little mixed on the James Gunn's DCU so far, so we'll see. But it's it doesn't pull anything away from the movie yet to see that he's involved. I'll be happy for that flavor as well.
Absolutely.
Next up, we have a new film announced from Mary Bronstein titled Nasty, starring a reunion with Rose Byrne, thank God, and also Jenna Ortega from Warner Brothers Clockwork Studio. I'm very excited about this. If I Had Legs, I Could Kick You was one of my favorite films of that year. I think that Rose Byrne and Mary Bronstein have an incredible partnership at this point, and I would love to see what they do together. And we've talked about how between Jenna Ortega and maybe Amy Adams, I don't know who has the worst agent in Hollywood. They seem to be two very talented actors who I enjoy seeing, but have not been in the best projects. And so I think that on paper at least, this seems like something I'm way more excited for Jenna Ortega to dip her toe into something like this. A smaller movie with sort of our auteur filmmaker. And yeah, I'm just very excited to see what this is going to entail. How about you?
Yeah, reading about this project, it sounds really fascinating. It's a sports drama that follows an athlete who is battling for a spot on the Olympic gymnastics team and who recognizes that her greatest opponent is her coach. So seeing a battle of wits between Rose Byrne and Jenna Ortega is going to be really exciting. And yeah, I'm with you. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You was one of the best films of last year. Rose Byrne, in my opinion, and I know your opinion as well, should have won the Best Actress Oscar. So I'm really excited that they're working together again. And yes, it is very refreshing to see Jenna Ortega attach herself to a project that will hopefully bring the best out of her and remind us that she has a lot of talent, despite the fact that she's been in a slew of middling projects these last few years. So I'm really excited to see how this pans out. And it's going to be interesting to see how this indie label from Warner Brothers, Clockwork, pans out, because I know that Clockwork is also handling Sean Baker's new film and Park Chan-wook's newest film. So I'm really excited to see them collaborate with these very celebrated indie auteurs and hopefully bring their visions to life.
Yeah, if this is like a whiplash style, contentious professional relationship drama, like with Mary Bronstein and those actors attached, like injected into my veins right now.
Absolutely. Speaking of Warner Brothers, we have unfortunate news once again regarding my dearly beloved, The Batman Part 2. We learned that it is now delayed again for the billionth time. This time it got moved from October 2027 to February 2028. We also did get the first camera test footage of Robert Pattinson as Batman, and that footage was awesome. It was really, really cool to see, and I love the look and the aesthetic of it, and I'm very excited to go back to Matt Reeves' Gotham universe and everything. But reading that it got delayed, I'm like, can this movie please catch a break? Like, I'm tired of reading delayed. And by the time it comes out, it will have been 6 years since the first movie. So, listen, I'm sure the movie's going to be great. I have full faith in Matt Reeves and his team. I am bummed that it got delayed, but I am excited to see how it pans out. We also learned that J.J. Abrams' film, The Great Beyond, which was supposed to come out later this year, has been pushed to October of next year, taking the Batman Part 2 slot. Supposedly, the rumor behind that is that now, since there was an open slot, J.J. Abrams wants to get IMAX 70 prints of his movie out there, which is awesome for sure. I think with the success of the Odyssey, he's like, well, we got to capitalize on this whole IMAX 70 thing. So, there's pros and cons to this story. The con is that we have to wait forever for these movies, but the pro is that they won't be rushed out. The filmmakers will be able to take the time that they need to perfect their material. I'm very excited for both of these movies. I am bummed that we have to wait just slightly longer for the Batman Part 2 in particular, but regardless, it's coming. We know it's coming, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, it is. It is disappointing that a 6 year gap is a lot to ask of audiences to stay invested in the story. And luckily this one it has plenty of fans who are definitely going to come back for it. But just about generating buzz for maybe someone who is a bit more on the outskirts of the Batman fandom or superhero fandom or anything like that. I do think there's going to need to be a bit of like reestablishing of why this one was so popular in the first place and everything. But I prefer this to the alternative. I prefer it to them rushing it and then it's a mess and we're all like, why didn't they take a little more time. Like Matt Reeves seems to be very very much in control of this project and kind of is making it in his vision, and he's getting the time and space and hopefully resources to do that. So I prefer that than the alternative.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yes, and another surely just as gigantic movie. We have cast announcements for Sarah Polley's production of The Bell Jar. Billie Eilish had previously been announced to star, and now Carrie Mulligan is joining the ensemble as well as her mother, the character's mother. I believe Connor Story is also rumored to be in it. This is exciting to me. I have not read The Bell Jar, but I'm familiar enough with the story and really love Sarah Polley. I think we kind of on our drafts we've dipped into talking about some of her work a little bit. Take This Waltz and Women Talking in particular, just ones that I really love. And Carrie Mulligan, fresh off of Beef and getting an Emmy nomination for that. Billie Eilish, this would be her film debut, although she did star on that Amazon Prime show, which I know she got pretty good reviews for that. So I'm definitely excited to see her dip in acting. I think that she's a great sort of presence and could definitely lend itself well to something like this. So yeah, are you excited about this project?
I am very excited. I'm not too familiar with the material, but the people involved are what are attracting me to this project. I really love Sarah Polley as a filmmaker. I haven't seen everything that she's done. Admittedly, she has a very small filmography behind the camera. I loved Women Talking so much, so naturally you make that, and I'm very excited to see what you're going to do next. And then I'm a huge fan of Billie Eilish as a performer. I love her music so much. I adored the concert film that came out earlier this year, and I think she has a great aura and vibe to her. And she's also a two-time Oscar winner, so I think it's very exciting that she's going to be dipping her toe into acting on the big screen. And who doesn't love Carrie Mulligan? She's one of our greats working today. So yeah, very excited for this one for sure.
Definitely.
Next up, we have some news about the upcoming Avatar The Last Airbender movie, which is titled Avatar Aang The Last Airbender. Now, if you guys don't know a ton about this movie, that's quite all right because unfortunately Paramount has kind of been keeping this hidden and under wraps. So this film was originally supposed to come out in theaters later this year. This was intended to be a theatrical release. Big news for fans of the animated show from the 2000s. And then Paramount, being the slewy company that they are, they're like, we're going to just pluck it from theaters and we're going to dump it onto Paramount Plus. So we learned for the movie to receive an awards qualifying run, it's going to have a 1 week engagement in theaters in New York and Los Angeles. That's great for the movie. That sucks for people who don't live in or near New York or Los Angeles because this movie was clearly intended to be a big screen experience. And I admittedly am not like an OMG Avatar guy. I loved the show growing up. I started rewatching it during the pandemic, but I never got around to finishing it. But I do think it's cool that we're getting this story of what happens in the future. And I think that for hardcore Avatar fans, this is a project that they really have wanted. So while it is disappointing that not everybody is going to be able to experience this on the big screen, the fact that it's getting some theatrical release is very promising. A rare W from Paramount, if I say so myself.
So yeah, it's a slight W. I mean, I don't know why they didn't have a wide release to begin with. I think that like there's so much love for Avatar out there. Like I think that people of our age definitely grew up. I actually didn't grow up with it. I think I caught up with it. I think I watched it like during the pandemic or something. I watched all three seasons and loved it. It's just a really great show that holds up. And yeah, I think it has so many fans. And I don't see why. Like I just think they're leaving money on the table by not having this be a wider release. I remember it being a big controversy when they first announced that it was going straight to Paramount Plus. So yes, I'm glad that some people will get the opportunity to see it in a theater. I'm definitely going to try to check it out while it's here in New York. But yeah, we're privileged to do so because we live near a major city. But for most people, they're not going to be able to do that. So yeah, and I think that this one, I'm excited for this one beyond other Avatar projects that they've had, obviously the M. Night Shyamalan movie and the live action Netflix series. I believe this one is produced by the original creators of the show. And so it seems I'm hoping that, creatively it's a bit more in line with the original show and a sort of purposeful step towards that rather than just kind of, recreating, diluting the original show. So yeah, I've been wanting to see this and I'm glad I'll probably get the chance to do it in a theater, but yeah, I wish more people had that opportunity.
Yeah, and this film has gone through so much because the film got
Mhm.
leaked a few months ago in its entirety,
Right.
and people were hoping that Paramount was going to just revert its decision and put it back in theaters, but they didn't. And it's great that some people will be able to see it on the big screen, but it's unfortunate that a lot of people are just going to have to sit at home and watch it instead.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe some of that decision making is like kids will watch it and are, more likely to just turn it on if it's streaming, but I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know. I think
I'm
that
thinking to myself, is this really going to be
yeah.
catered towards children, or is this going to be more embraced by the people like us who grew up, who were kids when the show came out and everything?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that you're definitely gonna have adults our age, young adults, I would say, interested in this more so. I mean, yeah, I don't know that many kids in my life. I don't know anecdotally or anything if younger children like got into this, retroactively. But I don't know if maybe that was some of their thinking. Like if it's just on TV, people will get invested in it versus going out to the theater when kids aren't going to be like clamoring for this particular IP. But I mean, I don't know. I think that it's you're gonna get more into something if you can make it a big event and bring the whole family. I would imagine, but what do I know? What I do know is that some film festival news has been announced. We've got the announcement that Danny Boyle's Inc. is going to open the Venice Film Festival, and James Gray's Paper Tiger will be opening the New York Film Festival. Excited about both these movies. I believe Paper Tiger premiered at Cannes and at Cannes and got a pretty good reception. Danny Boyle's Inc. Excited to as well. That's starring Jack O'Connell and Guy Pearce. And yeah, I think that these are both, pretty big, starry casts and big filmmakers who everyone's been waiting to see. So I think these are pretty, big titles to open the film fest. So like we've talked about already, it's a very heavy blockbuster year in terms of, movies that are going to be taking up a lot of the conversation and the awards conversation as well. So I think that these are maybe, I don't know, maybe a little less buzzy than we've had in previous years, but I'm excited for both of them, and I think that they're a good kickoff to both festivals.
Yeah, I'm very excited for both of these films as well. James Gray is one of my guys, so naturally, Paper Tiger is a highly anticipated title for me, and I think it's perfect and very fitting that a New York based film is opening the New York Film Festival. I've been to the New York Film Festival so many times. This is unfortunately going to be the first year where I'm not attending the opening night film due to other commitments. So I hope to see this down the road at some point, whether it's at the New York Film Festival or at another festival. I would prefer to see it in New York because I always love seeing films set in their city, in their actual city. So hopefully I get the opportunity to see it in New York. And plus, yeah, it didn't get the buzziest reception I can, which disappointed me. But naturally, I'm very excited to see what James Gray puts out. And of course, my favorite actor, Adam Driver's in it. We have Scarlett Johansson and Miles Teller, and I love all three of them. So I'm very excited to see what they do. And Ink is a very interesting one too. There's not a ton of details about it. It actually just got picked up for distribution from Netflix. So I'm interested to see what kind of release strategy they have for that film. But Danny Boyle, another filmmaker that I do very much adore. Jack O'Connell reuniting with him after 28 years later, and Guy Pearce, who doesn't love him. So yeah, I'm very excited to see it. It sounds like a cool like journalistic thriller, business thriller. So I'm very excited to check it out for sure. And I can't wait to hear all the buzz surrounding that film. And yeah, it's good to open up these two festivals with very high profile buzzy titles to gain some attention, gain some notoriety. And these festivals are no stranger to opening up their festivals with star-studded casts and ensembles. Last year, New York Film Festival opened with After the Hunt. So again, they're no stranger to this stuff. So I think these are two very promising openings to each of these festivals. And throughout the next few weeks, we're going to get a ton more news about film festivals. I believe Venice is going to announce its full lineup just in a couple of days. TIFF is starting to put out some of their announcements as well, and the same goes for New York. So over the next few weeks, we'll definitely be touching upon all these film festivals, giving you guys information about what films are premiering. And, we could see the possibility of our awards contenders making their debuts at these festivals.
Yeah, 'tis the season. Award season is just starting to rev up.
Exactly. And we got four trailers all of which could be possible awards contenders. So we'll quickly go through these trailers and give our thoughts on them. The first trailer that we're going to be talking about is The Uprising, which is directed by Paul Greengrass and starring Andrew Garfield. It is set during the Peasants' Revolt in 1381, and it is about a farmer who leads the rebellion against the forces of the then 14-year-old King Richard II. I like Paul Greengrass. Admittedly, he hasn't made a lot of films, but I generally lean more into the positive direction than the negative direction. I think Captain Phillips is great. I think everything he did with the Bourne franchise is really promising. He also made United 93, which is a very underrated film. Green Zone is one that he also was involved in. He recently made The Lost Bus, which admittedly I started and I couldn't finish. I was just really not into it. But he's a filmmaker who has a very unique style and makes these very fascinating projects. And, similar to other actors we've talked about so far in this episode, Andrew Garfield is the man. It's so hard to not love him, and to see him kick ass in a role like this, I'm really excited to see him in this kind of role. But you also have a really good ensemble surrounding him in Jamie Bell, Tom Hollander, Cosmo Jarvis, Thomason McKenzie, Johnny Lee Miller, Catherine Waterston. The biggest curveball, the biggest WTF of this trailer was watching it and being like, why do I know this kid who plays King Richard II? It's Woody Norman, who was the kid in Come On, Come On. The sweet, innocent little boy from that movie is playing this villainous child. And I'm like, where the fuck has he been? And what the fuck is he doing here? So very jarring to see him here. But overall, I mean, the trailer didn't knock my socks off or anything. But with the people involved, I'm definitely intrigued to check this out.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna say one of your other guys, Andrew Garfield, is front and center here, and I love him too. It's not like the type of movie I'm necessarily like thrilled about that I like would want to run out and see, but I'll definitely see it. It's a great love Andrew Garfield, a great ensemble around him. Yeah, Woody Norman was like I remember being surprised after seeing Come On that to find out that he was British and like did like a perfect American accent and was so like naturalistic in that movie. So this seems like a much grander scale kind of thing. So yeah, I'll be excited to see him sort of level up a bit and do something a little bit different as well.
Yes. Another trailer that we got was I Play Rocky, which is directed by Peter Farrelly. Oscar winner Peter Farrelly, just to unfortunately remind everybody that this man has 2 Oscars to his name. This is a film that is following the production of Rocky. And as a huge fan of Rocky, Rocky is one of my all-time favorite films. It's a very special film for me. I've loved it my entire life. I think the idea of a movie centered around the tumultuous production and development of that film is really interesting because if you read about it, it was very fascinating to see what Sylvester Stallone put himself through to make sure that the movie was made the way that he wanted it to be made. And the thing is, does it look like the most generic biographical drama? Yes, it doesn't look like it's doing anything to reinvent the genre. I will say that there are some people out there that are tearing this trailer apart. I don't think it looks that bad. Maybe I'm just suckered in because of my love for Rocky and everything. And also, I do love movies about movies being made.
Making movies, yeah.
Exactly. And I don't know. I don't think it looks that bad. Personally, I don't know. Seeing the sequences of them filming Rocky, I don't know. It got me. Maybe I'm just dumb. I don't know. But I thought it was, a very interesting trailer. And I like a lot of the actors involved. The guy that's playing Sylvester Stallone, I mean, sure, he's doing an impression of him and everything, but I don't know. I thought it was interesting learning that he also played Al Pacino, and now he's playing Sylvester Stallone. I think that's really cool. And we have one of the love of my lives, Anna Sophia Robb, in it, who I love her very much. Matt Dillon, Toby Kebbell, Stephen James, Physical Media King Tracy Letts, Jay Duplass. A lot of people are in this movie. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it looked sweet and endearing. It will probably make its premiere at TIFF and everything, try to buzz its way into winning the Audience Award. So, yeah, I don't know. I didn't hate the trailer, but maybe I'm just dumb. You've said before on this podcast that for some reason you've never seen Rocky, which is crazy. So, as someone who's never seen Rocky, what was your stance on this trailer?
Yeah, not interested in Rocky, but like you said, I am interested in movies about making movies, and if this was like a particularly tumultuous production and everything. I think that's fun. That's like enough of a hook to get me interested in it. Yeah, I think the trailer was like fine. It did look pretty generic. It did play before I saw the Odyssey in IMAX when everyone was a bit more locked into the trailers because the Dune one was coming. And there were I don't remember what particularly, but there were a couple of lines that got a bit of a chuckle out of the audience. Like it was a little hokey, but I'm not gonna prejudge it. It could be an annoying hagiographic mess, or it could be like a perfectly fine crowd pleaser that I'm gonna watch and enjoy and probably not think about too much beyond that. But I'm open. We'll see which way it goes.
So, have you just never seen Rocky because you've never been interested in it, or you just were never shown it? Like, what?
Yeah,
What's up?
neither. It wasn't anything I saw like growing up, and just wasn't. I don't know. Not the biggest Sylvester Stallone fan, not the biggest sports movie fan, even though there are some that I love. So just never really seemed like a priority. It's on my list, but not
Rocky is
not the biggest
great.
priority.
Rocky is great. Just to let you
Hmm.
know, it's great. It's
I'm
not the
sure it
best
is.
sports movie. I have you seen Creed? You've seen Creed, right?
No,
Well,
I haven't seen any of the series.
Creed. You might like a bit more. I
Even
feel like
more,
Creed
yeah.
you might like a bit more since Stallone is not the lead of those movies and everything. Another trailer that we got, one that is very anticipated for both of us, but I think
Yes.
more so for you because of who's involved. We got our first look at Tony Gilroy's Behemoth, starring one of the coolest quartets of the entire year: Pedro Pascal, Olivia Wilde, Eva Victor, and my guy, Will Arnett. This looks great. This was just a teaser. We don't know a ton about the movie, but it involves composers. Apparently, there's 9 composers attached to this
Hmm.
movie, which is nuts. I'm so curious to see how that's handled come award season. But I really like Tony Gilroy. I believe this is his first directorial outing since 2012's The Bourne Legacy.
Legacy was one he did.
So
Yeah.
I think it's crazy that he's been, kind of in the writer's position. He obviously made Andor, so he was busy with that. So it's really exciting to see him back in the feature film territory. Michael Clayton is a fucking heater. That is an all-timer film. That is an all-timer debut film. So I'm really excited for the talent involved. I know that for Searchlight, this could possibly be their main contender. I know that they also have Wild Horse 9, but the teaser that we got, I really liked the vibe that we were getting. It kind of reminded me a bit of like the freneticness of Whiplash, and everyone in this cast is fucking hot. And there's a sequence where Pedro Pascal and Eva Victor are making out, and it's like the sexiest thing I've ever seen in my life. But I'm very excited for this. I think it looks very promising, and I cannot wait to see Pedro Pascal also lead in a film because he's been a co-lead or a supporting player, but he's never been the direct lead of a film. So I'm really excited to see this. So again, I've alluded that Tony Gilroy is a big deal for you. I feel like it's more so because of Andor, if I'm not mistaken. Like Andor is like very, very special to you. So what is your stance on Behemoth, and what is your anticipation level for it?
Yeah, love Tony Gilroy. I mean, Andor's like my number one thing, like of the last few years. But I love Michael Clayton as well too. That's just and he's he hasn't directed all that much, but he's been kind of like a script doctor who can come in and fix things. And I just really like I like hearing him in interviews and stuff. Just the way that his brain works and how he attacks stories and comes. I just very much align with like how he creates these stories that he wants to tell, and everything just feels very, very grounded in character, very grounded in reality. But I just think he's just very smart about how he produces things. So yeah, was excited for this. I mean, I love the idea that it's about film scores, and the 9 composers thing is very intriguing. This was originally supposed to star Oscar Isaac, who I love Pedro Pascal, but Oscar Isaac's my number one boy, so I would have preferred him, of course. But I'm still excited about this cast for sure. Olivia Wilde continuing to have an amazing year off of The Invite, and she's gonna have want your sex. I want your sex
I want your
coming soon.
sex.
Yeah. So excited for her too. Yeah, I think that this is just continued my excitement for this. And I think, yeah, Whiplash, I definitely get some of those vibes. I was seeing a lot of people chatter about how I think that like Tar is becoming a really big influential movie. Like I feel like you see that creeping
As
into.
it should be.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that that one maybe got a little like sidelined in the awards shuffle that year. It didn't quite get
That was
all
the
the
best movie of that
recognition
year, by the
that
way.
people like felt that it deserved. Yeah, and I think that's one that we're gonna look back on as like being something really big, not just for audiences but for filmmakers. So I think that's kind of a curious thing to watch too. So yeah, this is one of my most anticipated of the year, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, and then Eva Victor coming off the success of Sorry Baby, which was their directorial debut, which they also
Mhm.
acted in, should have been nominated for an Oscar for that. Yeah, I was really hoping that Julia Roberts' campaign for it was going to pull through. Unfortunately, it didn't.
Mhm.
So Julia Roberts, you really fumbled the bag big time there. And Will
First
Arnett.
After the Hunt and then that.
Yep, and then Will Arnett, seeing him continue in serious fare because he was so good in this is this thing on. So I'm really
Mhm.
excited to see him in this. And originally David Harbour was supposed to play the role,
Right.
and I like him and everything, but Will Arnett, that's a really cool flex. And
Yeah,
apparently
I
Hank Azaria's in this too, and I love him very much.
I feel like Will
And
Arnett
Matthew
has
Lillard.
yes, love him. I feel like Will Arnett has some haters, but you and I are not one. I think they're not two. I think that
Whoever
I love
hates
seeing
Will
him in
Arnett,
anything.
show yourself, please, because I have things to say to you, and they're not going to be pretty at all.
I always enjoy him as a screen presence. Like I think
He's
he's
he's amazing. He's wonderful. We love him very
mhm.
much. And the last trailer, we had to save this for last because this is definitely one of the big movies of the year, one of the buzziest titles of the year, poised to be a major awards contender. Alejandro Inarritu's Digger, starring Tom Cruise. We finally got our first full trailer. We are seeing what Tom Cruise looks like with heavy makeup, the southern drawl, and the craziness that is ensuing in this. So there has been a lot of polarizing responses to this trailer, as expected from Inarritu, as expected from a satirical black comedy like this that feels akin to something like Doctor Strangelove, certainly. I think the trailer really worked for me, and I'm not usually into satirical movies. You have to ride a fine line with me into getting me invested into satires, but I don't know, something about this going for broke and going wacko and putting it out there. I'm really excited to see what happens with this movie. I'm especially excited to see what Tom Cruise is going to do with this role. I've loved him my entire life. I obviously love his action fare, but I think it's so exciting to see him back in a role that isn't Top Gun, that isn't Mission Impossible, that's just, in air quotes, a regular character. So I'm very excited to see him do something like this. And I'm also really excited for the entire ensemble here. We have Riz Ahmed, Sandra Hoover, Michael Stuhlbarg, Jesse Plemons, and the secret MVP of the trailer, John Goodman, who I honestly think is coming for his very first long overdue Oscar nomination. I'm really excited to see this. I like Inarritu. I'm not in love with him. I do love Birdman, though. That Birdman is a film that I very much adore. So I'm really excited to see this. The trailer, it hooked me. It got me. And I know that this is not going to be for everyone. I can already anticipate that when this comes out, there's going to be a lot of lovers for the movie and there's going to be a lot of haters. But for me, I was hooked. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm very excited to see it.
I liked what I saw, yeah, and I'm also at the point where I'm like, I don't want to see any more. Don't show it to me. I just want to watch the movie. So, yeah, I don't know. There was some chatter about like not loving the look of it, that it was like too gray and dark looking. I'm like, I would imagine just from the little we got in this trailer about the subject matter, would imagine that that's on purpose. I don't think that that's an accidental choice on Inarritu's part. So, yeah, he's not my favorite filmmaker. I like some of his films and some less so, but I trust him at least to have a vision on this. Like I don't think that it's gonna be I think it's gonna be notable one way or another. And yeah, satire is I like a satire. I think even the ones that I don't really consider successful, I think there's still like a lot to, no pun intended, dig into. And even if it's something that you don't ultimately, come down on working, I think that there's just always a lot to excavate. So yeah, this could definitely be, I mean, this could be a gigantic mess. It definitely could. We don't really know until we see the film in its entirety, but I'm far more hopeful than that. I hope that there is a lot here. I hope that this is the Tom Cruise performance we've all been waiting for. We love him as Mr. Movies and Mr. Action Hero guy, but I've been just dying for him to get back to something that is more grounded in, this still looks pretty heightened, but obviously in a much different direction than the heightened worlds he's normally operating in. So I'm excited. I'm hopeful. I'm on board. But yeah, we'll have to wait until we see the final product.
There's all these scenes that have been floating around from the trailers that I've seen all over my timeline. I particularly love the delivery from John Goodman where he's like, "Is that all the bad fucking news?" I I'm
I
so
mean,
excited
no
to
one's
see what
better.
he does in
No one's ever
this.
done it better than him.
Yeah, I think it's finally his time to get nominated, and just like how it's
Certainly hope
Tom
so.
Cruise's time to finally win an Oscar. Like He really is coming for the Oscar, and I know that I think I've said on this pod, and I think you've said it too. I don't really love the idea of a career win. I would love it if the performance itself was the sole reason why an
Yeah.
actor wins.
Mhm.
But there's something that tells me that even if this is a career win, it does look like Tom Cruise is going to give a really exceptional performance. So I'm really excited to see him do something like this. And yeah, I think the trailer kind of solidified that he's the front runner for best actor, and we haven't even seen the movie yet.
Yeah, I think we, even without seeing the movie, we have confirmation that he's like going for it. He's like doing a little bit more campaigning and promoting than he normally would when he's kind of a bit above it all and doesn't really necessarily need to dip into that. He can just sell it on his star power. So yeah, I think that if he, it's interesting because we can get into this later. I think Matt Damon's in a similar position where he is also the lead of a giant movie and a big movie star who doesn't necessarily always have to dip into the promotional cycle. So I think it's gonna be an interesting year for lead actor for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, that concludes our weekly catch up. And now, ladies and gentlemen, grab your swords and prepare for battle. We are bringing you our review of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Certainly one of the year's most anticipated films for many of us, and we're here to break down all of our thoughts. So, we'll begin with a non-spoiler thought. I mean, it is like a thousands-year-old story, but getting into Christopher Nolan's specific interpretation of it, and then we will transition into full spoiler territory. So, Bryan, how did you feel walking into the Odyssey? How did you walk out? How many times have you seen it? Please tell us everything.
This was easily one of the most anticipated films of the year, like you said, for many people, but it was also one of my most anticipated films of the year. I have to address this right here, right now. I'm probably the one person in the entire world that somehow never read the Odyssey in school. I don't know why. I'm shocked that I never read it, even on my own accord. But this is pretty much my first adaptation of it, like straight up adaptation. I have seen Oh Brother Where Art Thou, which is a fucking great movie, and that's obviously another adaptation of the material, but now we're finally seeing a true, tried and true adaptation of this material brought to life by one of cinema's greatest working filmmakers today. We just did our Christopher Nolan draft. We just put that out there and we celebrated how he really is one of the greats working today. When you go to a Christopher Nolan film, it's an event. It's a huge deal. He makes a few of them every few years, and he certainly has become a favorite filmmaker of mine. I really love how he immerses himself into the scope that he brings to life. I love that he's a filmmaker that advocates for the true cinematic experience. And I love, too, that after winning Best Picture and Best Director for Oppenheimer, and he was given a check, he could have literally done anything. He could have gone and done something a bit smaller. He could have done something big. And now here we are with most likely his biggest project to date, him adapting the Odyssey, one of the most celebrated pieces of literature, with this massively gigantic cast. A lot of hype surrounding this. Tickets going on sale a year before it came out, like it was a concert. Easily just a huge deal for us fans of cinema and just cinema in general. This is a humongous achievement, and people have been waiting and waiting to see this adaptation of the Odyssey, and now it's finally here, and now we get to talk about it. I have seen the movie twice. I've seen it once on regular IMAX, and I've seen it on its beautiful, luscious IMAX 70 print at the greatest theater ever, the AMC Lincoln Square in New York City. So when I walked out of the movie initially, I was speechless. I had no idea how to articulate my thoughts on it. I was so wowed by how Nolan brought this to life. I was very blown away by the vision that was on screen, the scope, the spectacle. I had no words to properly describe my feelings with it. But having seen it twice, I am happy to report that I loved the movie. I have some gripes with it, and we'll definitely get into that as we're breaking down the movie. I don't think that this is the best thing that he's ever done, but the fact that he put his heart and soul into it, like he does with every project, you see some of the best filmmaking that this decade has offered us. Visually, it's so gorgeous. It looks beautiful. I love blockbusters that not only deliver jaw-dropping filmmaking, but also have an emotional core underneath. This was certainly a film that I was taken aback by its emotional side, and I certainly didn't anticipate that. Again, I didn't know the story. I knew some basics, but I didn't know the full beginning, middle, and end of it all. And I think that Nolan adapting this was a really cool choice. And I know that there has been a lot of discourse surrounding this film, and we could talk about that as we're breaking down this movie. But I think that this was a huge achievement, filmmaking wise. I mean, he outdid himself again. I don't know how he does what he does. It's insane to me how he's able to do the things that he's able to do. Performances across the board, outstanding. Like I said, visually wonderful. The score, oh my God. I've listened to the score nonstop for the last few days. And I just think that this is a really impressive piece of filmmaking. One of my favorite films of the year for sure. It's definitely a impressive outing from Nolan. Again, it's not top 3 for me. I know that some people have ranked this very high in their ranking, and I'm really happy for you. I'm not quite there yet, but I am happy to report that I am a big fan of his adaptation of the Odyssey. I'm so excited to talk about it. There's so much to break down. But before we break it down, we got to get your thoughts on the film. So, how were you feeling walking into the Odyssey? How many times have you checked out the movie? And overall, what was your take on the film?
I would imagine we're gonna be largely on the same page for this review because I also really loved it as well. Yeah, so I saw this the first time in just normal plain old movie theater. I was gonna go see it in Dolby, but I couldn't get into the city that day, and so I ended up seeing it at just my local theater, and it's still a decent sized theater and everything, but yeah, I saw it that time and was mostly just blown away by like the experience of it. It was just and I was looking into when I saw this on the first time with my boyfriend, and I was saying we were both saying right afterwards we were like that was a loud movie, which it definitely is. But then I had said to him like, oh, and I'm gonna go see it in IMAX too. Like I'm gonna get my face blown off, and he was like, well, IMAX is like a bigger theater, like it more echoes. Like it's actually interesting. I think it was more just words to the wise if you're trying to decide what format to go see it in. Like I almost found it to be like at least auditory wise, like almost more overwhelming in a smaller space. And I don't know how that translates to other to 70 millimeter, other things like that versus the gigantic IMAX screen. But yeah, definitely just blown away by the experience, by the filmmaking. I never read the full Odyssey, but we read like excerpts in school. I can picture it in like one of those giant literature textbooks that we used to have. So I was definitely familiar with like certain stretches of the film and different sequences and stuff. So yeah, blown away by that first experience. Then I had my own Odyssey to go see it at Lincoln Square, like you said, when the best theater in the city. I had tickets for a 3 a.m. IMAX 70 millimeter screening. Lots of people told me I was crazy. I enjoyed myself very much. I think it was very fun. Going on my own Odyssey through the city in the middle of the night, and then emerging in the beautiful daytime and heading home to take a nap. So I really enjoyed the experience. People were just buzzing around. I've always said that seeing something in a really large format like that on opening weekend, like of course I love the giant screen, of course I love the sound, all of that is great, but it's kind of I prefer it for like the energy of the theater. Like you just know that everyone there wants to be there really badly, and they're very locked in. There's a lot of audience enthusiasm and interaction and stuff. So I don't that's just kind of unbeatable for me. So really enjoyed that experience that I'm still recovering from as we record. And I think that I think that the movie sunk in for me more on a second time. When I knew it was coming, I wasn't so like overwhelmed by it. I think that I did little things popped out to me, little nitpicks and stuff like that I kind of thought might have smoothed over on a second watch. But also the thematic things I was taking away from it, all of that I feel like kind of deepened as well. And I found myself like I've just been like turning it over in my head a lot. I kind of like it's the kind of thing that I am finding myself thinking about a lot. So yeah, I think that it is more intense than I thought it was, than I had anticipated. I think that people have been calling this like Nolan's first horror movie, at least in certain sequences, and I would co-sign that definitely. I think there's a lot of that in there. Probably thematically it kind of shares the most DNA definitely with Oppenheimer. Like that's been discussed a lot. And also like a dash of Interstellar in there too. Although of course Nolan has so many themes and motifs he always comes back to. And yeah, I think that there's the main large complaint that I've seen people have is a bit of not leaning into so much like the fantasy and the mythology aspects and the gods. And I think I wasn't surprised by that. I think that's in line with Nolan and his grounded style. And just going off of what I've learned and read about the Odyssey, like if you had too much intervention from the gods. It would kind of be dramatically inert. And so I think that it injects a bit more like character decisions, and it's kind of more about the decisions of men versus just, divine intervention a lot. So like those adaptations, I think are smart decisions. I think I like the structure of it. I think it's a pretty, it's one of Nolan's better screenplays probably. And then of course just gorgeous. And I'm a big fan of the performances. Yeah, it's a real movie. And I would definitely recommend, like we said earlier in this episode, like we're privileged to be near a larger city where we can see it on like the intended, giant format. So if you can do that, I absolutely recommend it. But, if you can just go out and see this any way you can, like go out and see it. I would definitely recommend like being part of this cinematic moment when everyone is this excited about this ambitious cinematic film.
It feels very refreshing to see people so excited about something that isn't, a sequel or a prequel or some IP superhero project. Yes, this is obviously based on material, but this isn't like an Avengers movie. This is the Odyssey. This is one of the
It's
most.
so crazy that there's like this is the first Hollywood like production of it. Really, like, there's never been there's like a mini series or something, but there's never really been like a large scale adaptation of this like most famous story. So yeah,
Yeah,
this is a great one to do it.
It's crazy that this is a story that's been around for thousands of years, and now we get a really proper adaptation of the material, and leave it to Christopher Nolan for doing something like that.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that a film like this exists. It's been doing very well critically and financially. I mean, looking at the numbers, it's going to make a ton of money, and a lot of it has to help with the fact that a lot of people are going to watch this on premium formats, whether it's IMAX 70 or regular IMAX or Dolby, straight up 70 millimeter, straight up 35 millimeter. This is a huge deal for cinema right now. And a lot of people, even people in my life who don't care about movies the way that you and I do, are going out to watch this. And that's so exciting to see something like this. This is a huge deal. That we're living in a very special moment right now for cinema, for cinephiles, for filmmaking, and leave it to Christopher Nolan for doing something like that. So there is a lot to talk about with this movie. There's so much to get into. So now we are going to go onto the journey. We are going into spoiler territory. If you haven't watched the Odyssey, like Veronica said, please go check it out. Please go to your theater and check this out. Don't be one of those plebeians who waits for it to come out on streaming and watch it at home. Please go to the theater and check this out. You're not going to regret it at all. So let's get into our spoiler thoughts on the Odyssey.
All right, yeah, we can kind of break this down to, obviously we have Odysseus, who is played by Matt Damon, and so yeah, we can kind of get into like some of his journey first, then we'll discuss what is going on at Ithaca, his home kingdom. So we get this introduction to him. He is like this beloved leader, king of Ithaca. His wife Penelope and his son, to blanking on how to say his name, to Telemachus, I think is how they pronounce it. But
yeah, just to let everyone know, there might be some mispronunciation of the names. So apologies in advance if we don't correct them. So don't yell at us. Thank you very much.
I was calling Benny Safdie's character Edamame. Agamemnon. Yeah, we can play with actor versus character names, but whatever. So yes, we get the sense he is this beloved leader. He's obviously on this journey. He has been away from home for 20 years. So it's very interesting. We can talk about the script structure here. Nolans it up here quite a bit. Not quite as complex as some of his other screenplays, but we're definitely playing with time here. We're definitely dipping in and out of stories, in and out of even just like images, flashes of images at times. And so yes, we can kind of pick up with Odysseus beginning his journey it starts off with the Battle of Troy, the Trojan horse, of course, that is so famous. And we don't, it's hard to describe. We don't get that story until later on in the movie, but it actually probably starts with him with Calypso on the beach, where he is disoriented, doesn't remember his own story. So he's piecing it together, we're also piecing it together. So he starts he's on his journey with his men after the Battle of Troy. A series of interactions with mythological creatures. These are the kinds of things I remember from reading the story. We can dig into, if you want to get into, I believe the Cyclops is the first outing when they're out at sea. So yeah, if you want to talk about that sequence first, Odysseus and his men and the trials that they're on, what jumped out to you about that one?
Oh man, the Cyclops. We're starting out on a very high note, quite frankly. You might hear me say this a lot throughout this episode and everything, but the Cyclops scene was fucking spectacular. Like the filmmaking on display in that moment, that made me ascend out of my seat. I leaned forward and then I ascended out of my seat when that moment unfolded. Cause oh my god, like brilliant stuff. So I will say this before we get into like that specific sequence and everything. When the movie opened up, I have to be honest, it took me a while to really get on its wavelength.
Me too, a little, yeah.
I thought that the first few minutes of the movie were a bit clunky, and I don't know if that was more so with the way it was edited or the screenplay. I'm not entirely sure, and haven't seen it twice. I'm still trying to figure out the answer to that question, but
It's a lot of exposition.
a lot of
Yes,
exposition,
dump on
and
you.
I don't really enjoy exposition dump. If it's earned, if it's utilized well, then that's a different story. But 90% of the time, when exposition is being dumped on us, it's a little too much for me, and I don't necessarily vibe with that. I think in this movie, ultimately, it made sense to do it that way, but it definitely deterred me away from the movie for just a bit of time because Nolan's a guy that I love, and when the movie began, I'm like, oh god, one of this movie is not something that I vibe with at all. Because you don't want to be the one person who's like, there's a film that a lot of people are celebrating. You're the one guy who's like, nah, it's not that good. And there are people out there that aren't into this movie, and that's totally fine and everything. But when the movie began and it was all over the place, I'm like, all right, let's simmer down a bit. Let's cool down. Once we got into like the full on journey of it, the Cyclops sequence definitely was the point where I was locked in from there until pretty much the whole time I was locked in. From there until the end, I was locked in the entire time. But the Cyclops sequence, them going into this cave and encountering this creature, that was such a beautifully constructed sequence. First of all, Hoyt's imagery in that, very dark and very brooding. Loved seeing that. And then the visual effects work on the Cyclops himself. It was a hybrid of an animatronic puppet and then motion capture work from Bill Irwin. And this was one of the many moments throughout the movie where I'm just like, how the fuck does he do this? How is he able to create something like this and make it look so cinematic and so epic and so unbelievable? And then you see these other films in comparison that cost the same amount of money, if not more money than this, and they look like absolute shit. So seeing this on display, it was very terrifying to witness. And I think that from this moment, we were like, oh, this is going to be something very different for Nolan. Like, he is not shying away from the horrors of this story. So I really, really loved that moment. And I loved how, from the beginning, we knew that this journey, this Odyssey that we were going to go on was not going to be the most pleasant. We knew that we were going to hit a lot of bumps and we were going to witness some things that are going to stay with us and are going to crawl under our skin and make us very uncomfortable to witness. But I think that this Cyclops sequence, if you want my honest opinion on the sequence, I thought it was terrific. I thought it was unbelievably done. And I'm like, Christopher Nolan, and this isn't the only time I said this guy needs to do a horror film. He needs to do a horror film. And we'll get to that sequence that made me go, yeah, he needs to do a horror film. But this Cyclops sequence overall, big fan. Big fan.
Totally agree. I love the design. I had seen before seeing the movie, I saw Christopher Nolan talk about how he took inspiration from Guillermo del Toro, my guy. So could definitely see the influences there, and on top of hundreds of years of movie monster history and everything. So yeah, I thought that it looked beautiful. It was, yeah, it just the scale of it, you felt the sound design is doing so much work here. That is, when I talked about it being a loud movie, I mean that is one of the loudest. The sound that the Cyclops makes as it's injured is just like it's really like disturbing, and it kind of, again, that's where I just found this to be like an overwhelming movie. It just kind of is like a sensory sort of overload, like in a good way. And the Cyclops sound also, it sounds very much like an homage to Ray Harryhausen, the Cyclops in his films and stuff like that. Like, and that crops up throughout this movie, and I think that Nolan's talked about his influence as well. And so yeah, it's a harrowing sequence. It's like kind of a little thriller within the movie that I was just very locked in for. We get the first sort of there was something where, again, the first time I saw it, just very overwhelmed by it, but it was something a little bit illegible to me about like how many people they could get in and out and stuff like that. And I do remember, this is one of the parts of the story I most remember from like having read it in school. And I believe in the book, like Odysseus does a little more to trick the Cyclops. And I kind of have gotten that sense from, other people's impression of the original story and of Nolan's adaptation, that I think Matt Damon here is playing a bit more of like a guileless Odysseus. Like he's a bit more like pure of heart, somewhat. And I think that makes sense as a setup for kind of the journey he goes on later, like emotionally and intellectually. So I don't mind that at all. But I do think that's like sort of a choice that Matt Damon and Christopher Nolan have made here. And so, it's a little like half of the guys get out of the cave, and then like he's got to jump back in to kind of help the other half. And it was like smoothed out enough for me on the second watch. So yeah, I think that I was mostly just living in like the creature design, the haunting sort of cave dwellings and stuff, the fire that's going, and they're like eating the cheese off of the walls and stuff. And I think this is maybe the first instance where we're introduced to the idea of like not always being able to honor the dead, and that the Greeks have this very like strict rules about how you bury a body, how you dispose of a body in order to honor it and, move on to the afterlife and whatnot. And this is like sort of where that concept is introduced of like they're escaping from a giant Cyclops, and you don't always have that opportunity, and like that comes back later as well. I think that the Cyclops, like, I mean, obviously Odysseus has his moment of hubris and anger where he takes that last arrow to stab the Cyclops in the eye once again, even after they've escaped, and that curses them as they say that the Cyclops is a son of Poseidon, and that's going to give them bad water for the rest of their trip. And just that chase down the hill, I thought was so thrilling. That was just really, really great. And the design also, you could kind of see it there. Like Bill Irwin is like spindly, and he's like, I don't know, I feel like you could have made that monster very like either just gigantic and I don't know, there's something about the way that he moves that is like a bit like kind of unsettling, and he does look just like a sort of deformed man, and I think that's purposeful because we're supposed to see how they viewed him as this beast who is completely disconnected from humanity, and I think that's often their downfall throughout this movie. So, yeah, thematically resonant, definitely one of the most memorable sequences in the movie for sure. Yeah, I really loved it.
Yeah, I just was so impressed with how they were able to stage that. Then reading that they shot it in a cave where supposedly the Cyclops lived and everything. It's like, Nolan, you cocky motherfucker for doing something like that. That is just so impressive. And then there was a picture that floated around of the animatronic puppet that was created, and I'm just like, how the fuck did they get that into that cave? Like, that is just unbelievable stuff. What Nolan has to do with the fact, I don't get how he does it. I don't understand how he's able to do the things that he's able to do.
Yeah, it's really crazy. And it's like you can see, like, I could see Bill Irwin in it too. Like you can,
Yes.
obviously it's got
Yes,
that
you can.
motion capture, but like it's a performance as well. So that's just very impressive. And yeah, so this leads to them sailing away, and the men saying, Poseidon has cursed us now. I believe here Odysseus says, like, you can't live by omens and sacrifices, and again playing with that idea of like what are the gods versus what are men's decisions, and fate versus free will, that kind of thing. So where's their next journey? I believe the next instant that they have is the sort of giants that they encounter on the island.
Yes.
That one, I mean, also intense. Also a great sequence where they, as they're traveling, they've been blown off their course. They're just trying to sort of stop places to get provisions and, restock on things. And so they, pretty much every time they find an island, we encounter some great mythological folly. And one of the jokes I saw is that it's like every time they're on an island, it's like they have to like run off the island, like that gif of Jack Sparrow like running with the like million people behind them chasing them. They're constantly like, they always leave in a worse place than they found it. So yeah, they get onto this island. The very, very cool image of it seems like there's like a man, leaned over with his back to us and standing up, and it's a child who is like the size of a man. And so I
Mhm.
think someone mentions like, well, if that's the child, like where are the parents? And
Mhm.
then there's a really cool moment of them coming out of the fog. And this one is set in like kind of a forest. It's a little bit snowy. It's like a different kind of atmosphere than we've seen so far. Here I was thinking most of like Lord of the Rings. I think the score was kind of giving Lord of the Rings a
Yeah.
lot here. There's the moving trees, there's giants, there's
Yeah,
the,
and we
the
get that cool shot that's been floating
yeah.
around the internet of from behind Matt Damon as Odysseus, and then the men are coming towards him and everything. And I'm
Mhm.
just like, oh, this is so epic. And yeah, it felt very Lord of the Rings coded.
Yeah. And from what I've seen, I haven't seen too many details about how this was filmed, but I don't know. There's been rumors, I guess, that it was like mostly practical, that it kind of was just like big giant actors, maybe with, I don't know, stilts or some sort of augmentation. But like, again, it just so much respect to Christopher Nolan for trying to film things as practically as possible. And all the action is like, it's so legible. Like, it's so, they've got the trees moving around. So they like kind of trap the men and then are like stabbing them as they're trapped. They're like, people are getting thrown through a tree because they're so powerful. Just all very like just very tangible and it's still like a little intense, like a little scary too.
Yeah, and then some of the survivors of this attack leave behind Odysseus and they seek refuge with this person named Cersei, who is played by Samantha Morin. And we learn that there's something very suspicious about her. She's like, come on in, men. Let me feed you my meat. She gives all these men her meat, and they're so obsessed with it. And then we learn that she is a witch, and them eating all this meat gets them turned into pigs. And what I talked about the Cyclops scene being very terrifying. This scene legit freaked the fuck out of me. And when I sat in the movie and watched it, and I had heard from some early reactions before I saw the movie that this movie leaned a bit into horror, and I was like, I wonder what they mean by that because Nolan hasn't really dabbled in horror before. So I was thinking to myself, I'm like, Christopher Nolan in horror, what is that like? This scene was so fucking scary. And even watching it the second time, and it kind of leaned into a bit of a body horror approach with her hands
Definitely.
like on their face, turning them to pigs, and then her hand going down their mouths. And I'm just like, what is happening? Like, this is not something I expected. And again, I didn't know the context of the sequence. I'm well aware that it's in the material, but at the time, I'm like, oh, there's a sequence where men are turned into pigs. Oh, okay, that's interesting. And that sequence was
I
so
didn't know that
so
was
well.
happening.
Yeah, like seriously, what the fuck is happening? That sequence was so impressive, and with it being the only time that we see Samantha Morton on screen, she kind of solidified herself as a secret MVP of this massive ensemble compared to people who have like 20 times more screen time than she does, and it made everyone go like, this is the sequence that people have said online Christopher Nolan has to do a horror film next. And this sequence was so well done, and it was very refreshing to see this sequence happen while on the outside Odysseus is just searching around and everything. And I love the suspense that is built up in this sequence because if you don't know this material, you don't see this coming. So when it happened, I was just like, oh shit, this is like really intense that this is happening. And this is my favorite sequence of the entire movie, quite frankly. I think that this is the sequence that has stuck with me the most since I saw the movie. And when I saw it the first time, my friend who was with me, she like kept punching me in the arm and everything because I was just like, I was just, my jaw was on the floor. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing, quite frankly.
Yeah, one of the most intense, I think one of the most thematically rich, and one of the best performances. Yeah, Samantha Moore is definitely up there for MVP for me. She has so much impact with such little screen time. Just the I think this is like maybe a good place to talk about just one of the larger themes of the movie that is maybe not quite as present in like the original text, but like it's definitely like what Christopher Nolan is going for here. And this is where I think everyone has been saying this is such a sort of 1-2 punch with this and Oppenheimer about like just sort of imperialism, the whole idea of Zeus's law in this, the idea that you have to, it's just sort of the common thing to take care of strangers that you meet, and to have that sort of like social fabric that we all sort of rely on, and the idea that something like war and soldiers are sort of something separate. Like that's this whole other, they're not subject to the like, polite society that everyone else is, and that the fog of war is somehow different. But I think that this is such a clear, there's just like one little like fable to sort of demonstrate everything that the movie is going for, where, as soon as we begin with Cersei, and we should shout out definitely Hamish Patel as Eurylakis, I think his name is, who is kind of Odysseus's right hand man. He has like a lot of screen time in this, and he was like, I think he was just such a great like steady hand for him, who's in a lot of featured in a lot of these sequences, and so he is the first one to like come upon Samantha Morton here, and he scares her, and she like goes run frightened, and he's like, no one is gonna hurt you, screaming at her, no one will hurt you. She's like, if I do what you say, you won't hurt me. And she's just very obviously very skeptical of the, she's not welcoming to these strangers because she's kind of seen, I think, in particular soldiers and in particular men, and what they can do when they are, hungry and desperate and have these like baser instincts. And so, yeah, turning them into pigs is a demonstration of that. And as they're eating, I was almost more grossed out by the eating than before they like actually do the body transformation, because they're like their food is almost like looks like this like tough solid meat thing that's like kind of choking them as they're eating it. It's very, very horrifying, very disturbing, really effective. And then as his ear sort of starts to transform into the pig's ear, like all that, yeah, very just I was like, I didn't quite know that Nolan had like something like this in him, like something that is very it's very weird, it's very off-putting, it's disturbing, and so yeah, I think that's she turns them into pigs to sort of say like this is who they really are. And so, Odysseus in the meantime has been trying to hunt for food. He's been tracking a deer. He shoots the deer, and we should also talk about how he plucks his bow as a warning for the hunt because he is so honorable. And as he kills the deer, that's turned into a man, a very attractive man, by the way. That's been a top point of conversation too. A wonderful butt on that man. And so he obviously knows, okay, something's up on this island. The animals are people, etc. When he comes across Cersei and his men as pigs, he even lies there. She says, "Are you alone?" He says, "No." She asks if he comes from the sea. There's this whole theme of like the people from the sea are the ones who are sort of like destroying the world out there, and we've kind of learned how true that is. And so yeah, just the idea that like he's immediately giving even a slight deception. He brings a dagger in when she asks him to leave his weapons outside. I just think that this is like the perfect sort of encapsulation of the whole story, where like, Odysseus is honorable as presented to us in the story, but like war and soldiers are just like this. It's like this compartmentalization that all we've seen them do is kill and plunder and, accept hospitality that they are sort of demanding under threat, and that this is justified because they're doing it for Ithaca, and Ithaca is good. But if you go by that logic, it can justify anything. And so invading places to maintain the quote unquote way of life at home, like they actually end up breaking the world and destabilizing the future for Ithaca and for everywhere else. Like, does any of this sound familiar? It's obviously very, very relevant to our world. It's so relevant to everything that Nolan is playing with in Oppenheimer. Just all of this. I was just, the second time around especially, I was just feeling like this is like the perfect encapsulation of everything that the movie is trying to do. Of Odysseus as someone who is smart and cunning, but also maybe just a little bit like almost naive about his men and the nature of humanity, everything like that. So yeah, this just definitely one of the best sequences of the movie by far.
Yeah, I have nothing to really add there. I think that you described it very beautifully of how it aligns with the themes that this movie is tackling, and I like how you brought that Odysseus, despite him being a very like prominent king who has all this power and everything, there is a bit of naivete to him, and he tries to be honorable despite the fact that some of the things that he does in the story aren't exactly the best of actions. So I really commend Nolan for tackling that. And yeah, it was surprising too, watching not only through this scene but throughout the entirety of the movie, of how the Odyssey, and I guess I didn't really realize this, is that there's such a timeliness to this story, to where even though it's set so far in the past, there are some elements of it that are somehow prevalent with today's society, which is crazy. So maybe that aligns with why Nolan wanted to bring this story to life today. And again, he could have done something very different as his follow-up to Oppenheimer, but the fact that he chose to do something like this was really, really exciting. And yeah, like, I know that you've talked about on the pod of how you're a horror girly and everything. Like, did this sequence as well as the Cyclops sequence make you go, Nolan, why the fuck haven't you directed a horror movie yet?
I mean, yeah, I'm so curious what that would look like because he does have such his particular, sort of bugaboos, like the kind of things that come up in everyone. So I'm curious how that could translate. And he usually does things so sort of grand and epic. Like, yeah, I don't really know what a horror movie would look like, but this is I mean, he can obviously do it. I mean, he could pretty much do anything at this point. So, yeah, I think that I'm a little less into like the body horror stuff. I was a little more into like the suspense buildup of the Cyclops sequence and things like
That's
that.
fair, yeah.
But I mean, he could do it all. He can mix it and definitely make something very, very impressive. So I would love to see that for sure. If he
Yeah,
wants
I
to do
would
that for his
agree with
next
you. I'm
movie.
definitely more into like the suspense horror than the body horror. Like horror in general just isn't like a genre that I personally really connect with compared to a lot of other people. But I loved seeing him show that side of him that we really hadn't
Mhm.
seen before in any of his previous movies. And I think that it's just like you've already done like fantasy, you've done superhero, you've done sci-fi, like try to lean into like a horror. I think it would be very cool to watch like a Christopher Nolan horror film, IMAX 70, like just this big event. I think it would be really, really cool. I made a joke with some of the people I saw the movie with on IMAX 70. I was like, imagine if Christopher Nolan made like a rom-com on IMAX 70. Like just
Would watch.
imagine. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like it would be a huge deal. Christopher Nolan's Before Sunrise on IMAX 70.
I would love it.
That would
I
be
mean, we talked about with Oppenheimer. Like, I think the magic of that movie is like that is largely a bunch of people talking in rooms, and
yeah.
like the whole idea is that their face is the spectacle. And so I mean, I think he could be totally fine going with something that's on a more intimate scale. I mean, mostly because I don't know how you get bigger than this. So there's got to be some sort of scale down at some point. I would really
Yeah.
love to see what he does with something like that.
Yeah, and he's definitely showcased intimacy in some of his films, but they're very smaller moments compared to like the grand scope surrounding these projects. Like, I still think that maybe his most intimate movie to date, which is crazy because so much is happening, is Interstellar. And I really
Mhm.
like the introspective approach that he put in this movie and everything, kind of akin to Oppenheimer to a degree. We've talked about how there are some parallels between this and Oppenheimer throughout the movie, very subtly. And yeah, I just think that like with Nolan doing what he did here was really, really fascinating. And we think that the horror ends here. No, the horror progresses throughout the rest of the movie. So after
Definitely.
meeting Cersei and everything and requesting that the men are changed back to their human form, she warns that to reach Ithaca, Odysseus must cross Oceanus into the underworld. And when we get to the
You hate to
underworld,
hear it. Hate
oh
when
my
my GPS
God.
tells me that.
Oh my God. The underworld segment. Do you want to set this up for us? Because if I try to set it up, I'm gonna be stumbling across my words.
Okay, well, I'm not even gonna bother trying with character names because, I would definitely be stumbling then. So yes, we go to Hades. He is getting a prophecy, and so this has again a very Harryhausen-esque moment where the dead are sort of coming growing out of the ground, and it's a lot of his fallen soldiers and comrades and stuff. And so yeah, first we hear from Sinan, who is Elliot Page's character, who so far what we've seen from him is that he was killed at the beginning of the Trojan horse incident. He was sort of like sent out there as bait for that. Odysseus knew him as a child, and where he I was that was like a little muddled for me. I think that for Robert Pattinson's character, he was selected to be in the war through lottery, but then they sort of jockeyed to like get their like stable hand boy in it instead. That was a bit confusing for me, but either way, it sort of he took Robert Pattinson's character place in the war, even though he's like very young and all that. So it's someone who Odysseus feels some amount of guilt over, and so we have an interaction with him where he's sort of most like disappointed that Odysseus had to lie to him about the Trojan horse incident. Like he is kind of wishing that he just had truth about the entire situation. That's kind of again a theme of what do we lose when we lie to people or deceive people, that kind of thing. We get some background on Edamame, on Agamemnon, Benny Safdie's character, who has thus far we've just seen kind of in battles, and he's the one on like all the posters with the large spine coming down off the helmet. He's got this crazy big, suit design that is like really, really cool. And so, that's all we've seen from him so far. You barely even see Benny Safdie's face in this. And so we learn from him that, he advises Odysseus, don't just go home, because what happened to me was that I had, previously sacrificed my daughter in order to get a better omen from the gods on our mission. And when I came back home as this giant war hero, my wife didn't forgive me for that so much and proceeded to murder me while I was, happily in my bed. Not a warrior's death at all. So, we're getting this backstory on him. Odysseus is getting this advice and everything. And then there's a prophecy about the things they're going to encounter on the rest of their journey. Tells them about the sirens, tells them about a whirlpool versus monster situation where the whirlpool will take the whole ship, everyone will die, versus a monster where 6 people will die. And that ultimately, if the men eat these cattle on this other island where they land, they're gonna all die. No one's gonna make it home except for Odysseus. So, obviously we're launched into the idea of fate versus free will here. Odysseus is determined to defy the gods and say that, okay, this is what you say, but I am the master of my own destiny and I'm responsible for this crew. And so he's going to, use that information and try to defy it any way he can. So, if you want to get into where the prophecy leads them, then.
It doesn't end well for anyone.
Not particularly.
It does not end well for any of them. They tried to escape the island, and Odysseus warns his men not to kill the cattle. And because of the whole thing of being told that Odysseus' men would die from doing so they direct the starving man to slaughter the cattle. And when they try to escape the island, Poseidon's storm sinks the ship, killing literally everybody but Odysseus. He washes ashore, where he meets Calypso, who is played by Charlize Theron, who is very infatuated with him, understandably so. When you have Matt Damon in a beautiful beard and his abs just popping out, of course I would be infatuated with him as well. Drugs him with forgetfulness-inducing lotus flowers. So before diving more into this, I just want to say, like, going back to the Hades sequence and everything, again, not to glaze the technical elements of this movie, but oh my god, the technical elements of this movie were so good. Ludwig Göransson's score throughout this movie is phenomenal. It's outstanding. Yeah. He's winning his 3rd Oscar, as if it wasn't already apparent. But this particular needle drop of when they're walking, and I love the imagery. It's very foggy. It kind of feels reminiscent of like a Saving Private Ryan. I always think of those shots where you see them from a far distance walking with their weapons and their uniforms and everything in a herd and everything. But there's this really cool like synthy approach to the score in this moment that I really, really liked. It was like wow, wow, wow. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, we're watching a movie called The Odyssey and I hear like a synth in the needle drop. Like, what is happening? It is so well done. And this sequence was so eerie because it was very foggy. You couldn't really see anything. And then everyone like emerging from the dirt, and Elliot Page having all that dirt all over his face was very terrifying. And then those quick flashes of Benny Safdie's character and everything. What a year, by the way, for Benny Safdie. I saw someone post on Twitter like the last 3 roles that he did as an actor. This Super
Bowser.
Mario Galaxy movie and Happy Gilmore 2. And they're like, that's range if I've ever seen it. That's a powerful 3-film run. But yeah, I liked the whole approach of what did you say? It was fate versus what?
Versus free will.
Versus free will. I liked that approach and that theme being incorporated. Again, there's all these themes and these sayings that are incorporated into how Nolan presents the story, and I really appreciate that. But this whole sequence was so gutting and terrifying. And then, a lot of people were talking about this particular sequence online before the movie came out. This was the scene, I believe, where we have Odysseus running, screaming, "Let's go," and then everybody runs. And I know that some people were criticizing that sequence on its own, being like, why would someone scream, "Let's go," into battle? But really, that sequence was kind of Odysseus just running for his life, and we get a shot of like he's so far ahead and everyone is so far behind him, and that was a very terrifying sequence to witness. So that is not like a fun rallying battle cry. That's like
him running from the sins of his
Which
past and
I
all
think
the dead
I would have
soldiers
been
he
so
left
shocked
behind.
if Nolan did that. I'm like, I don't think Christopher Nolan would be the kind of guy to incorporate a battle cry into a sequence like that. But I liked the way it was emphasized here. And yeah, that whole storm sequence, holy shit. Again, how the fuck did they film that? Like, how the hell did they do it?
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I guess what I probably most enjoyed was the siren sequence. Again, that's like one of the probably more
Oh,
famous things from the
oh
story.
my god, the siren
And
sequence.
again, like an instance of like, okay, he has this prophecy now. Like, how do we defy it? So put wax in the men's ears. But he wants to hear the siren song, so he's tied to the mast of the ship, and he has a little speech in there, a little monologue about the siren song sounded like everything you've ever wanted and everything you wish you didn't want, and what you want the most is what you've already had and lost. It was very much giving Into the Woods. It was very kind of that, like, that sort of timbre, but and
Interesting
also kind of
comparison.
it sounded like, what you have, what you want, what you wish. Which is like, it's all kind of playing on the same, fairy tale mythological bearings. So and I think it also kind of concludes with the idea that, like, one of the things that scared him most in the siren song is the idea that, like, maybe I don't really want to go home. And I think that's kind of open to interpretation. That's brought up a couple times of, like, why is he on this why is he not necessarily doing everything he can in every moment to get home, or why is he allowing all these digressions and stuff? And it's like, is it just impossible after the horrors of war? Is it that he knows that, like, Ithaca is sort of spiritually desecrated after everything they've unleashed on the world, or like, maybe he just likes being a conqueror and is not, as much of a upstanding guy as he likes to think of himself. Like, I just think there's a lot of different interpretations you could take there. When people ask him, like, is there any part of you that is not actually committed to this journey home? That it's just very interesting to consider.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, yeah, Zeus' storm at the end, especially the first time I saw it, when I said the audio just sounded so much louder, it was like, oh, that was like a panic attack. Like, that was just it was so intense. And I was also realizing, I was like, what? I kind of felt it on the second watch. It's like, why does this feel like different than just, other, we've seen giant storms at sea before and things like that. And I was like, there's no CGI mess. Like, I mean, obviously we, trust Christopher Nolan not to do that, but there's no, like, pan out to, oh, this giant tidal wave that's hitting them, or like the storm going crazy or anything. Like, we're just on the boat with these men, and like, it feels like almost, it's like claustrophobic. It's mostly just like disorienting. Like, sometimes this is like a strobe light effect. Sometimes you're just like there, and then like a wave is in your face and the parts of the ship are coming down, and it just feels very like, and I think throughout the movie, it's mostly because of the sound design, but just the violence of the movie is like really visceral. Like, you feel the punches and the stabs and the, like, damage to the ship. Like, I just remember so many times when, like, the ship is getting hit and you're just kind of like cringing, like, oh, it's like almost like it hurts. Like, yeah, I just think it's just beautifully constructed, as you would expect, but it's just another thing to experience it, especially in a big theater.
Yeah. Now, how did you feel about everything happening after Odysseus' men are all killed and he's by himself and he's with Calypso? How did you feel about all of that?
Yeah, so we get all of that as, like, kind of interstitials throughout the story. That's been kind of an ongoing thing. And then, yeah, sort of wrapped up by him fully regaining his memory, having recounted, like, the whole story. I think that, obviously we know at this point, we already know he's been gone for 20 years or so, but I think the moment when he gets the realization that he's been specifically on this island with her for 7 years, like, I think Matt Damon's performance is great in that moment. The realization there that, he's lost this time in his life. I think that is the thing that was most giving Interstellar to me, where, like, they come back and find out that they realize they have to spend so many more Earth years away, and just that idea of losing time with your loved ones, a very big Nolan theme that we see coming time and time again. I think overall the sequences, I almost kind of wish. Again, I said I'm on board with Nolan's more grounded approach. I didn't expect him to go super wild with the god stuff and the mythology stuff. I feel like this was maybe an instance where could have been a little bit weirder, maybe a little more interpretive. Or from what I've seen of the story, like, Calypso and Odysseus, like, they have, like, a relationship for years. They're, like, in love, basically. Like, could have been a little sexier. Could have been a little more, like, I mean, she could have been a little more of, like, this nymph kind of, tempting him. And I get where we don't want to lean into that too hard, I guess, and make it, very tropey or anything like that, a femme fatale or anything. But yeah, I don't know. It kind of made Calypso feel just like a plot device, like just kind of to remember the story and everything. I didn't feel her compared to someone like Zendaya, who has limited screen time, but like I feel like that impact is felt.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
feel like
ask you about how you felt about that as well. Did you
yeah,
think that that was also a plot device, or do you think that that was handled much stronger?
I think the way that she dips in and out of the story is more effective, and you know she's supposed to be a little more godlike, and so I think she had more of an impact on Odysseus and on the story to me. Like, and I mean Charlize is very good. Like she didn't do anything wrong. I just don't think that the character as written like has all that much to do.
Yeah, and like the thing is with Christopher Nolan, like we all love him as a director and everything, and I think we like this is a common thing that a lot of people have said. He's not exactly the greatest writer when it comes to like structuring like the characters and everything, and like I do think that the inclusion of Calypso and even Athena, like I think Athena was handled much stronger, like you said. I think that that was much more effective than the stuff with Calypso and everything. And don't get me wrong, anytime I see Charlize in anything, that's a win for me. She's a wonderful actor, and I always love seeing her in things. And she's never worked with Nolan before, so it was really cool that she got the opportunity to say, like, I worked with Christopher Nolan, even though this role is like the smallest role ever put to screen. But I definitely felt a little torn on the Calypso inclusion, and I liked like their interactions. I do wish that there was a bit more with it to make me care about that instead of it just being there just for it being there. At least with
Yeah,
the
I wish it was
sequences
like a
with
little tonally different or something. Give it something like a little extra. It just kind of felt like okay,
yeah,
we're
just a
dipping
bit of
back into the
extra
same thing.
oomph. At least the stuff
Yeah.
with Athena, despite the fact that some people have complained about those sequences as well, I really found myself more affected by those and everything. Maybe it's partially because of how Zendaya emotes as the character. I don't know. Or maybe it's how it's written. I'm not entirely sure. Or when it's placed throughout the movie and it's
Mhm.
very effective usage. But yeah, the Calypso stuff didn't blow my mind. I didn't dislike it or anything, but I wasn't as
Yeah, yeah.
wowed by it as like other sequences throughout this movie.
Yeah, agree. And so his journey there concludes with, obviously Calypso has been somewhat keeping him under a spell, but they have had this relationship. They've been happy. She ultimately, helps him to remember his actual life and is okay with letting him go. And I think that's also an instance where, in the original book, that's like a god like intervenes and says, "Okay, Odysseus, time to go home," like that kind of thing. I think that's a smart choice to have that be a more organic decision rather than like just pluck in a god there because that can just be a little bit inert. So smart adaptation there. And so she kind of says, you've had the power inside all along, Dorothy. You can click your heels together and go home. You've been trying to control this journey the whole time. Just like give yourself up to the gods, and they will guide you home. And so he makes this very shoddy raft out of his remnants of his large boat, and just sails. I was like he's both Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz and also like kind of Moana. He's like the ocean's his friend. He's gonna like just send him home. And so going on that advice, he surrenders himself to the ocean, to the gods, and washes up on shore with Athena sitting next to him. And she says, do you not recognize your home? You're back in Ithaca. You made it. And so that's kind of where our storylines intersect. So yeah, how did that work for you? Did the idea of after all that whole journey, just kind of his surrender was what got him back home? Did that work for you?
It did. It was very emotional to see Odysseus kind of at that low point where he's like, I don't know what else to do. I need to go home and everything. And just for him to finally make it home after so many years of being away from it was really, really powerful. And, it just only gets powerful from there. And before we get into like the more intersecting moments, we should probably talk
Mhm.
about the other storyline that happens and then make its way into the final act of the movie.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So, as we said, the sort of the beginning of the movie does kick off with more of the stuff going on in Ithaca, which is a lot more like, political intrigue, vying for the throne, that kind of thing. So we have Anne Hathaway as Penelope, Odysseus' wife, and Tom Holland as Telemachus, his son, their son. And so Odysseus has been gone for 20 years at this point. I really like the earlier scenes that we see of sort of flashbacks before his journey with Penelope. I think that they're short scenes to establish like a very important relationship, but you understand this is not like a marriage of convenience or everything. Like they're genuinely in love and have a very strong bond. and you understand how hard this is going to be on both of them for him to do this journey. But so yeah, now that the Ithaca has been left without a king, she's been running the kingdom in the meantime, but their house is full of all of these potential suitors, and because of Zeus's law, where you're supposed to just take in anyone who comes to your door and treat them with hospitality. They've been hosting them here for, I think, years at this point, and they are growing restless because they all have desires to marry the queen and become king and declare Odysseus dead and gone. And so they're definitely there's a restlessness that's brewing. They're sort of baiting Telemachus into having fights with them and stuff, because if they have reason to kill him, now there's no heir. It would be a lot easier to take over power. It's all of this jockeying. It's all of this ego that is, I think we should say, most driven by Robert Pattinson going absolutely crazy as Antinous, I think is his name. And he is just hamming it up. He's going kind of campy here. He's just this sniveling, entitled, upper crust born person who wants to charm Penelope, wants to get that throne. And yeah, it's just really delicious here. So yeah, what about this setup was most impressive for you?
Yeah, I really liked the setup, although I should just address when the movie opened up with Travis Scott, I was like, what the fuck is happening? Just seeing Travis Scott out of nowhere just like open up the movie. I'm like, oh, didn't expect
I know
this.
he was in it, but yeah, I didn't know he's gonna be the
Yeah,
first person we see.
him opening up the movie was certainly a choice to say the least. But yeah, we get this whole storyline of how Penelope, uh, say his name one more time,
Telemachus.
Telemachus, and uh, Eumus,
Which one?
John Leguizamo's character.
Oh, y- John
We're s-
Leguizamo.
yeah, Penelope Telemachus and John Leguizamo as John Leguizamo. Um, they're the few people.
Leguizamus.
Yeah, they are the few people, the only people who believe that Odysseus is going to return, and everyone else is like, he is dead. If he hasn't come back already, there's no assurance that he is coming back at all. Like, there's no way he's coming back. And all these suitors are after Penelope. We have Robert Pattinson, like you said. We have Corey Hawkins as one of them too, and he's very
Yes.
delicious and eating it up. But Pattinson, oh my god, he is like so campy. He is a fucking diva in this movie. Like, he is a bit of a drama queen, and I loved seeing that side of him. And I loved too in interviews that Pattinson described the character as akin to James Woods' character in Casino. If you've ever seen that movie, he is a sleazeball in that movie. So I could definitely see the comparisons for sure. But yeah, the fact that Penelope is at a point where she still yearns for her husband to come back, but you could also tell that she is so tired. And she is like,
Yeah.
is there even a point of waiting anymore? But Telemachus is like, no, he is absolutely coming back. My father is still alive. And we have to do everything we can to find where he is and to get more information on him. So he goes on his coming of age journey of getting answers, of figuring out all these stories about his father, because he's never met his dad. So he doesn't really know anything about him. He's lived his whole life without his father. So he wants to get to a point where he could find the possibility of retrieving his father from his journey. And I I think that this makes for a really exciting arc. I love the coming of age angle of it, of him going on this journey, and we see a bit of him growing as a person and seeking bravery. And I think that that was a really interesting approach. And while I was definitely a bit more compelled with the Odysseus storyline going on, I thought that this storyline was very fascinating too. How did you feel overall about this?
I agree. Yeah, the Odyssey stuff was a bit more, the highlight and everything, but I think this was plenty engaging for me, and I kind of enjoy the palace intrigue kind of thing, very pretty Game of Thronesians, and definitely enjoyed all of that. And so yeah, we're getting Telemachus. In the first scene, I believe we saw a traveler, a beggar, come through and give a little bit of information about, like, oh, you should try here, basically, if you want to get some information with men who served with Odysseus. And so then that's where Penelope wants him to just stay put. They need to, if he goes out there, people wouldn't even need an excuse to kill him and strike him down. Like, you wouldn't be protected by the sort of Zeus's law idea within the castle walls and everything. So but he sort of feels like this is a ticking time bomb. I need some information just to know about Odysseus one way or the other. And so yeah, he sets off to go meet one of my other guys, John Bernthal as Menelaus, and enters his kingdom with his mentor, played by Ryan Hurst, who I like a lot too, and is getting some information here. So this is where we get all of the backstory of the Trojan horse attack and the war on Troy and everything, which is, once again, this is like one of the most thrilling sequences, I think. Did you get to see this early when it played before like one of the other IMAX movies?
Yes,
think I saw
I
it
did.
before Project Hail Mary. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it was a slightly abridged version. I don't think it had everything
I
that
think
eventually was in
I
it.
think for me, I saw it in front of Avatar, Fire and
Okay,
Ash. I
yeah.
think I saw
Mhm.
it was that long ago when they played it and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was already something I was, anticipating. I'd already seen a lot of it, but for me it worked so well within the story. I mean, it's an action sequence, but the entire concept of them hiding in the horse, the image of it sticking up out of the beach. I think I just saw this
Oh,
in an interview with Christopher Nolan. He took some inspiration from Planet of the Apes with that, which is like
yes. Oh,
you can totally
absolutely.
see it, and the whole idea of we ruin the world. I mean, very present there. Yeah, I think that this is just thrilling. You get to see you see the labor involved in like just moving the horse, getting it inside the walls, and so obviously the story here is that Troy has like these impenetrable walls. None of their armies can attack it, so Odysseus develops this trick to disguise this as a gift and get into the castle walls, and then attack by nightfall. And then yeah, when the attack happens, it's just it's very darkened by candlelight, and they're sort of stealthily killing the soldiers, and there's this huge tension of trying to get the castle walls open for their troops that are on the other side. A huge moment of suspense, very thrilling. The arrows are whistling, and the gate is getting wheeled open, which concludes in them getting the gate open. Agamemnon is there, who is so clearly reminded me of Darth Vader in Rogue One. Just that
Yes.
moment of like this like force that is barely even has to walk, just like glides forward, and all of the men fighting around him. Just a huge aura moment for sure. And yeah, so it's obviously this is Menelaus recounting this to Telemachus, and it's told quite triumphantly. Like that was their mission. It was so hard. Their men died just in the horse hiding. They fought this fearsome battle, but they outsmarted everybody. They took over the city. They did what they had to do. Like it's this triumphant story and everything. So, obviously this gets a bit muddled later on, but yeah, I think that it's helpful for him to have this interaction and just learn a bit more about his father and his past trials and tribulations, and the kind of I think he says, I didn't learn anything about where he is, but I learned more about who he is, and so he takes value in that. So yeah, how did you find all that to be in flashback, and was it an effective way to see this story?
Very effective, very well utilized, a perfect example of how to handle incorporating the flashback into a sequence. And yeah, I mean, seeing that sequence months ago, we only obviously saw a glimpse of it, and I was so excited to see it incorporated into the context of the film. And I was just as thrilled by it as I was when I saw it many, many months ago before the movie came out. And yeah, I liked the comparison of him walking. Yeah, when the gates open, he's walking out. It did feel a lot like, Darth Vader coming out in Rogue One and everything. Very commanding force. I was really impressed by that angle. And shout out to John Berthal's great beard, his bald head. Just love that guy very much. Love John Berthal very
I
much.
think his is probably also a controversial performance. He's like, he's doing a kind of very modern acting style,
He's
but
in it for 3 minutes. Like,
yeah, it worked for me. I liked it. I think it needed that energy and stuff. I didn't mind it at all.
yeah, I don't know why people are up in arms about this performance. I thought it was fine. I don't know why people are like, ugh. I don't know.
But yeah, so Telemachus has been doing this. Meanwhile, Penelope is at home, trying to getting somewhat wooed by Antinous, who is trying. They have that great scene as she's doing her weaving, where he's explaining that this everyone is just Odysseus is dead. Like it's time. He's very smart about how anytime we see him with anyone else, he is so like sniveling and evil basically, but he like knows to turn on the charm enough, like when he's with her. You could almost buy it when he's like, it's Robert Pattinson kissing your hand saying like, I'll take care of you. I'm like, I mean, I get it. I know she's loyal to Odysseus, but like, come on. And so yeah, we're seeing him trying to worm his way in a little bit more. And then with Corey Hawkins' character, and other of his friends there, they develop a plan to go and send some bandits to find Telemachus on the road and kill him that way. Since like we said, that's that would just be chalked up to, oh well, you were traveling and oh well, things happen. So yeah, that is the desired plan. They I believe the bandits who they send out to, they like abuse John Leguizamo on the way out, and steal some of his supplies and everything. And so when he's met up with Odysseus, he's the one who tells him about this plan and everything, that they have intentions to kill Telemachus. So yeah, everything is kind of coming together. Anything else you want to say about like the stuff that's going on in Ithaca before Odysseus gets there?
I don't like how they were treating the dog.
Oh God, the dog. Yeah.
I didn't
That
like
was
that
rough.
at all. That pissed me off. I know it's just a movie and everything, but let's stop with that, please. Thank you very much.
The poor guy. Yeah, just outside, and yeah, very very sad, but very very meaningful at the end. I liked how
Yeah,
it all came together.
yeah, me too.
So yeah, I think at this point, like Odysseus has now conferred with Leguizamo. He's not revealed his identity to him, because he's blind. He doesn't recognize him or anything. So
Yeah, he goes under
um,
this persona as a beggar and
yes.
everything. He cloaks himself. He has the big beard and everything, and like he's really hiding himself from everybody.
And he takes Sinan's name as like sort of an homage to him too. So
Yes.
that's what he's going as. So yeah, he meets up with Telemachus at this sort of like a temple where they're stopping, and the bandits have a plan to try to assault him there and take him by surprise. And this is from here on, Odysseus, I would say, is kind of like in John Wick mode. He's just very
Yes,
much
he is.
like he's like, I've come back to avenge and to reclaim what is mine. And I'm gonna fight real good and kill a whole lot of people. So and at this point, it's like we saw in early scenes Telemachus doing his like sword training and stuff, and he's like, he's getting there, but he's just not that good. He's not someone who has been exposed to the horrors of war, and so he hasn't had that sort of like training and everything. To me, I think it works really well that at this point Odysseus is obviously established as like this great warrior and kind of touched by the gods. Like, it kind of makes sense to me that he is the one who can do this almost like supernatural level of fighting, and Telemachus is like kind of just trying to keep up. Like, that makes sense to me that he would be a little bit more like deer in the headlights in these moments. And so yeah, Mentor is killed here, but they kill all the other robbers and they escape and make it back to Ithaca, where now Odysseus has the prophecy from Agamemnon in his head of like, you can't just arrive there and say, hey, I'm back and all good, I'm gonna go back to my throne. Like, you have to assess the situation, and so he's got to figure out what to do about these suitors, how to like deal with Penelope and make sure that she is like still loyal to him, and everything like that. So yeah, I loved everything with him, like being the beggar. The even the design of like the hood and everything was very smart. There were so many images where you really like couldn't see inside, and just looked like this sort of like black hole and everything. And I believe also when he washes up on shore and he's sitting next to Athena, the moment he gets up and like walks away, the robe is sitting there. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's Athena's robe that she like left for him, which is a cool detail. So yeah, I love the whole idea of him being like almost a little bit of like espionage, like trying to get some information, walking through the halls of the feast, and again seeing the like gluttony of men, the sort of base instinct of all of these people who have come to allegedly just come and woo his wife, but they're really just there like being parasites basically on their good hospitality. Everything like that is just very effective. And then we get to his interaction with Penelope. But yeah, all of that whole homecoming, how did that work for you?
Oh, I loved it. It was so beautifully constructed and it was very intense and very invigorating. And I loved the dynamic between Matt Damon and Tom Holland. I thought they worked off each other so well in these series of events. And yeah, just the introduction of Matt Damon as Odysseus Beggar mode was really, really cool, to the point where, I not to like jump with the gun and like talk about all the performances and everything. I thought Matt Damon was very good throughout the entirety of the movie. but I think he shined a lot more in the second half of the movie than the first half. When we were introduced
Mhm.
to Odysseus, it took me a while to get on the wavelength of the movie, and part of that was also with Matt Damon's performance as the character. And I usually like Matt Damon. I stand by saying that he's an actor that I have always been a fan of. I always love what he does, but I think the second half of the movie, when we see him as the older Odysseus, that brings a side of Matt Damon that I think is among the best work of his entire career. And it's very hard to, play multiple sides of a character. And I think that during this second half, that's where we get him at his absolute best.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree for sure. And it's also just like everything, even stuff in the beginning where we said it felt a little clunky, a little bit exposition dump, like all of the pieces are like falling into place right now. And it's like so satisfying how everything really just locks in. So yeah, I think that the may I don't know, maybe my favorite scene of the movie is his, he's entered as a beggar, and Penelope has asked, as was Odysseus's tradition, to meet with him and have his feet washed and everything. And so the first of all, the servant washing his feet recognizes his scar on his ankle from a boar attack that we saw earlier. Just again another little like satisfying moment. But the conversation that they have here is, again, this is kind of like the thesis of the movie. She talks about, where that he claims that he's served with Odysseus. He knows him. He fought with him at the Battle of Troy. And so now we get a sequence that, again, we've been getting little flashes too. We've been getting like this flash of him, like sort of horrified, like in the middle of this battle and everything. And we kind of get Troy recontextualized with a different lens, where he is saying that, the idea of the trick, the whole idea of the Trojan horse, is actually like the greatest violation of Zeus's law. Again, in conversation with Oppenheimer, like this is the version of like the atomic bomb. This is what created, the idea that goodwill among men can't be trusted, and there's deception, and in order to create violence and infiltrate someone and betray their trust. All of that is how he now views the battle. And we understand that, sort of everything we've seen has been colored by this idea that he is kind of, from that moment, he's just sort of lost into his alleged mission. He just kind of feels like, it's, I don't know, it's some combination of PTSD and this overwhelming guilt, and everything like that is just put into the forefront. And so yeah, we're getting the images again of the battle, but I think this time it's a lot more the soldiers. Some of their masks come off this time, so like we see them as they're getting killed. We see more women being attacked. We're watching like these towers be set on fire and fall. Then I think the best moment is with Athena, who has like appeared next to him as he's telling the story, as we've seen throughout the movie, which we assume that's, for sure, it's like a goddess appearing to him, talking to him, guiding him. But then I think this moment I think it's open to interpretation. We get this moment from the battle where his men have this woman who looks like Zendaya. They, chop off her head just as someone chops off the statue of Athena there, and it comes rolling down. It's this beautiful image. And I think it's this really awesome moment that like you can interpret that in many different ways. Like was he seeing a woman there getting killed, and he sort of associated that with the Athena statue falling, and so that's how his thoughts have been manifesting in his own mind. Like, is it all his psychological thing? Was, as they say earlier in the movie, the gods may appear as strangers. Like, was that woman killed actually Athena in human form, and they murdered her, and now she is haunting him? She's just stuck on him for forever now. Like, yeah, I think that's just a really beautiful moment that is I didn't see coming. Just the way that he talks about that. He has a great line that I kind of missed the first time. I got it on the second one, where he's had this whole thing about when he hunts, he plucks his bow so that the prey gets a warning and it's more of an even fight. He says, in this case, we turned what should have been a fight into a hunt. They hunted these people like as if it were sport, as if they weren't human. So just the reckoning with the dehumanization that he and his men have wrought on the world, when they're the ones who thought that they were doing this in the name of civilization, in the name of Zeus's law, and all that is good among men. Like, I just, wow, just really good stuff there.
Yeah, this was a very emotional side of Nolan that we hadn't really seen in a long time, and this is where I went. I think that like when he knows how to handle emotional gut punch moments, he does it very, very beautifully. And this sequence was a humongous tearjerker. It made me emotional, certainly. Very effective use of sound and music and acting, just very expressive through Matt Damon's face, through Zendaya's performance. And just this whole sequence of Matt Damon as Odysseus pouring his heart out, explaining his, his regret and just like feeling of how he could have done so much better during this entire moment and he felt like he failed. I thought it was a very powerfully constructed moment. And yeah, the idea of Athena kind of assuming the priestess form to punish Odysseus and his visions makes it all the more effective. Instead of her just being there just for the heck of it, there's more to it, and I really loved that angle to it.
Yeah, there's a reason for that, and then I mean he has this connection with her specifically through this moment of him questioning everything that he's done leading up to this moment. So yeah, there's again he's hiding his identity from Penelope in this moment. I think this is also kind of a fun Rorschach test of like when does Penelope suspect or know that he's Odysseus? Like I think there's kind of a moment when he says that like I think he advises her to make a decision to choose a new suitor to marry, and he says something like Odysseus will be there when you need him. Like I think that's her being tipped off a little bit, or if not that he's actually him, that he knows he's coming, something like that. So like I feel like she has some agency in that moment and is making the decision with in an informed way. So yeah, now she announces that there's going to be a challenge. Her next husband will be picked from the suitors at dawn or whatever, and they're all need to show up for it. So we learn that the challenge is something that she's talked about to Telemachus earlier, that there's this bow that only Odysseus could pluck and string up, and that he used to do this party trick sort of where he would shoot it through axes. So anyone who can complete that challenge will have Penelope's hand in marriage. And from here, it's just like really good, I don't know, action sequence like out the gate. I thought it obviously the suitors try to complete this challenge. No one else can string the bow as only Odysseus could. We get a moment where Robert Pattinson's character he almost kind of tries to like outsmart it. He's like, we get it. You made your point. It's about not being able to replace Odysseus. Like, just go ahead and pick and everything. And so, then of course we get the beggar in the back saying, I haven't tried yet. And, Odysseus successfully strings the bow, shoots the arrows. The first series of applause lines that happened in my audience was when Corey Hawkins' character doesn't even get to finish his sentence. He says, "You're and then gets an arrow to the neck from Odysseus, and then just a crazy good action sequence. Again, really well choreographed, really smartly plotted. We get Logan Marshall Green sort of escaping to the weapons closet where they've hid everything, and he is drilled a hole, not drilled, he's hit a hole through the floor where he can try to get weapons to the other men down there, because Odysseus is the only one armed with his bow and arrow that he's so skilled at. And just everything about how this played out was just really satisfying, really worked well, very thrilling. How did you feel about Odysseus's
Oh my god, the energy
yeah.
was so high during this entire sequence. Like even if you came out of this movie going, this movie was not for me, you cannot deny the craftsmanship that was on display throughout this movie, especially this action set piece. It's one of my favorite action sequences in a film of this entire decade so far. It was so well choreographed. It was beautifully shot. The editing was great. It flew by very quickly. The music was exhilarating. Everybody was bringing their A game. There was a lot of screaming. There was a lot of yelling. Robert Pattinson just ultimately diva and just yelling, "The spears, the swords, the shields!" Like just screaming from the top of his lungs. And there was this meme that I saw on Twitter where this is going to be so silly to express in context. So as soon as he realized that was Odysseus, he essentially ran away and he like cried. It was that meme of SpongeBob where he like cries and then he runs away with his hands flapping in the air. That's literally he was acting in that moment.
Yeah, as soon as everyone starts to catch on, he's like, "Oh, gotta go." Yeah,
you're Batman. You're supposed to be a badass, you Nimrod. Like,
no,
it was such a fun sequence, and it was just so dark and so brutal. And you kind of brought up John Wick before. This was kind of like Nolan's John Wick-esque sequence and everything, except it was set during this time during the Trojan War, and I was like, oh, this is fucking sick.
Yeah, everything about it worked. I did, like the thing that kicks it off was when when he first strings the bow and everything, and he plucks the bow the way that Odysseus does, and the like music cue that we've now heard like a handful of
Oh my
times
god. It reminded me
beforehand, and
so much of the music that Ludwig did in Sinners when she was lighting the match.
uh
It made me think of
mhm.
that right away, like how it like timed perfectly with the action that was happening on screen. And I'm like,
Yeah,
Ludwig, you're a fucking god.
yeah, and I mean, it just at this point, it's very it's gonna play out how you imagine it would play out, and he gets yeah. What were there were when I saw it last night in IMAX and everything, there were three applause moments when Corey Hawkins got shot in the neck, when Telemachus kills Logan Marshall Green upstairs, and he kind of pulls the same move we saw him do in Training again, another like well plotted established thing, and then Odysseus killing Robert Pattinson and saying, I'm returning your shame from Sinon and everything. So just really good stuff. Just really good action filmmaking, character payoff moments. Yeah, just everything. And I liked Telemachus again. I think you're established here that like he's not a fighter, he's not a warrior, he's never seen war, and so I kind of like that he's upstairs struggling with one guy while like Odysseus is being this like Odysseus is basically like a superhero at this point. He can pretty much take on a whole room of men and get away with it. So yeah, just brilliant stuff.
Yeah, and then the way that this all culminates, all the remaining suitors that are still alive surrender.
Mhm.
Odysseus returns to the throne and everything, but then he gives it to one more time, please.
Telemachus.
Telemachus, thank you. And he chooses to leave Ithaca with Penelope to seek peace in exile in a way to honor the people whose lives were taken during the war. And I thought that the way it wrapped up on a very beautiful, poignant note. And I think that this was a really great way to conclude the film, kind of the overwhelming nature where we get to breathe a little bit and we feel at peace. How did you feel about the decision to wrap up the film in this manner, the final like 5-ish minutes of this movie?
Yeah, I like it. I think that I do think it's kind of an ambiguous ending, and I felt differently about it the two times I saw it.
Do
Like the
you
idea
like that it
of
ended on a bit of a ambiguous note, or did you want it to feel a little more clear cut?
I do like it ultimately. I was almost a little bit not confused, but just a little bit like didn't quite know what impression we were meant to be left with at first. I think that they sail off into exile, yes, to like honor the dead, like we've talked about. They were not able to do so many times on this journey, and it's also something that Penelope has kind of been saying, like, let's just leave this castle behind and just like essentially just be together. And so you're getting that sort of interpersonal happy moment. But there is the idea of like they're leaving. Obviously we've seen how the society has been broken at this point. All of their standards have sort of been clipped, and so they're leaving this kind of mess to their son as the king. And I mean, I think that works. I think that's something that Nolan is dealing with, particularly in Oppenheimer, but in other movies too. Like just the idea of what mess we wrought on the world that we're leaving behind for our children, and that yes, of course, Penelope and Odysseus are going to ride off into the sunset together, but they're just it's not for a happy reason or anything. They're just kind of like he is essentially exiled now because he murdered all of these people, and something about the last few lines. There actually was, I don't know if it was the first theater I was in, like the sound on it was a little weird. I almost didn't like catch all of it. Like he mentions that sort of the dark ages are coming, and the idea of songs about these stories are kind of the only things that are going to survive because people will like forget how to write and all of this stuff. And this, I think the very last line is something like, and our mistakes will be forgotten. And I was like, the first time I kind of took that as like, oh, is that kind of like, he's like, hey, I've gone to therapy now. I've dealt with my guilt. I'm like, I'm feeling like all right about it. But I think on a second watch, and I got a little bit more of the wording and stuff. It's a little bit more of, we're kind of, society will rebuild, but we're kind of doomed to do this all again because people forget. And, the same mistakes are made, and history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. I was kind of getting more of that vibe the second time around. So I think it's kind of a glass half empty, glass half full situation. And I like that. I think that I could have felt like a little more oomph on it, or like something, I don't know, something a little bit more, not that it couldn't be ambiguous, but that I understand something about that. But I'm happy with it ultimately. I think that, it's a sort of very quick epilogue after the heights of that final battle and everything. So I think it works.
Yeah, I agree completely. I liked the way that it wrapped up. And then we got a cool Travis Scott and Neil drop in the credits.
Yeah, I stayed to listen to some of it, one of the showings, and it was okay. I don't know if it.
I like Travis. I'm a
Yeah.
fan of his music. I enjoy his stuff. I mean, I don't know how I felt about his performance. I know a lot of people are like, why is he in this? It's like he's in it for 5 seconds. It's not. It's really not a big
Well, I think that's
deal.
I like the idea of him being in the movie because I think Nolan has talked about this too, the idea of, like rappers are modern day poets and the idea of that's the kind of person who would have been telling this story, back in the day. So
Can you
I
imagine if
like
it
that.
was someone like ASAP Rocky though, following his great 2025 and everything? That would have been kind of
Yeah.
sick. Or Kid Cudi. I love Kid
Yeah.
Cudi as an
Yeah, I love Kid
actor.
Cudi. Hmm. Yeah, that's the Odyssey. Shoot, are any other moments or notes or anything that you want to go over?
Um, Moments or notes. We should get into our thoughts on the performances before we do that
Yeah.
because this is a stacked ensemble. Literally every actor from Hollywood is in this movie. Should we start off with our thoughts on the lead himself, Matt Damon? Now, on
Hmm.
previous pods, oh my god, I'm getting so emotional talking about this movie. Whew. Um, Matt Damon is an actor that we've talked a bit about on this podcast, and
Hmm.
you have said that he's not one of your favorite actors. Admittedly, you've said that when you see him in a movie, you're just like, oh, it's just Matt Damon. He doesn't really disappear to the character that he plays. Did you feel that way here as well? And how do you think that this compares to other performances that he's given?
Yeah, I've been hit or miss with him. Some stuff I love him in, and I tend to, yes, spoiler alert, yes, I really liked him in this. I think he was a great anchor. I think in so many of the emotional moments he like really delivered. Not that we didn't know he could do that or anything, but it was just really really effective. I like him either in this mode of like leading man and like I'm kind of the movie rests on my shoulders. I think he does that well. And I also like him in weirdo mode. And I mean, ideally, if he can do both, like something like Talented Mr. Ripley, I think that's, maybe his best performance. But yeah, I haven't liked the mode he's in so much recently of like kind of, I don't know, he's kind of when he hit like this middle age of his life and career, he sort of seemed to fall back into like, I'm Matt Damon and I approve this message. Like it just feels like he's literally either doing cameos or I didn't even really like him much in Oppenheimer because I felt like he was just being like, I'm the guy you just naturally know that I'm smart and right and doing good because I'm Matt Damon. And he needs to be a little more complicated to me. He doesn't like read so much when he's not. So I think that this is he had enough to reckon with emotionally. Like physically he's just like awesome in this. Like you totally buy him with all of the action sequences. You mentioned he looks great. He's like ripped but not in like an unrealistic like steroids way. Like I don't know, he just looks fantastic. Yeah, I think that he like holds the center of the frame so well in this.
Yeah, I think it's one of the strongest performances he's given in years. I do like him in Oppenheimer. I liked his moments in that film, and I liked his mustache in that movie as well. And yeah, I think that this is one of the stronger performances of his career. I think it's so cool that after working with Nolan twice in more supporting fare, he got the opportunity to headline a Christopher Nolan film, and I think he did a wonderful job. The action set pieces, the emotional sequences, there's some of that Matt Damon comedy sprinkled throughout as well, which I really appreciate. So all around, a fantastic turn from him for sure. I think that he really brought a lot to this performance. He did so much, and I think he did a great job bringing this character to life. And there's not a performance in this movie that I dislike. There's obviously some performances I'm not as high on as others, but I think that everybody surrounding Matt Damon does do a great job. I brought up before that my MVP of the movie might be Samantha Morton, but I think a close second is honestly John Leguizamo. He was unbelievable in this movie, and he's a character actor who hasn't really been given the opportunity to really shine in movies. He's done so much throughout his career, and again, I do like him whenever he pops up in things. But this performance was so emotional, and I felt so much for this character that anytime he was beaten on or ridiculed or judged or just like terrible things were happening to him, I was terrified for him. I wanted this character to make it out alive. I love the vulnerability that was brought to him, and I think that he had great back and forth with Tom Holland. I think that when he was on screen with Odysseus, the banter between him and Matt Damon was great. It was all around the very lovely performance. But Samantha Morton, for the one scene that she's on screen, she leaves a lasting impact. And I saw a ranking on Twitter where someone ranked the performances in the Odyssey, and they put her at number 9, and I'm like, number 9? Are you on crack? That is like top 3
Yeah, I would not.
performances of the
Yeah.
film. Are you nuts? She is awesome in this movie, and this isn't the first time in recent memory where she's left such an impact on just being a part of one scene. She was in one scene of She Said, one
Yeah.
scene of The Whale, and she really is a dynamic force in pretty much any project that she's affiliated with. I like Samantha Morton a lot. I think she's a very underrated talent, and here she killed it. She was awesome. I think that her and Leguizamo were neck and neck my favorite performances of the film. What about you? Like, who would you say gave your favorite performance or performances in the film?
Fully agree with everything you said. I would probably go Samantha Morton, for sure. I love that scene, and yeah, everything that she does within it is just awesome. Yeah, I think again, I think the one that I've seen a bit of mixed reviews on is Tom Holland as Telemachus. I liked him. I think that I think that Tom Holland has not been in great projects, but I've never been in doubt that he's a good actor. Like, I don't think he's ever really been all that bad in anything. And again, it's a bit of a thankless role. He has to be the, like, doe-eyed son who can't really do anything, like, by the constraints of the story. And I think he pulls that off. And I think that there are, the moment when he realizes that who Odysseus is from the dog recognizing him, like, just the way that he wells up in that scene, and kind of has, like,
He's good at crying on command.
so good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
He's like, he just, I don't know, he just has that sort of, face that you want to love, and you want to like, care for and everything. And I think that he pulls off the action stuff. Of course, he's experienced in that. I think that it's a difficult part to really, like, nail in any way, but I think he does the absolute best he can. I buy him with Anne Hathaway. I buy him with Matt Damon, playing off of these giant movie stars and everything. Like, I think he was very effective. I disagree with people complaining about his performance.
yeah, I don't understand why people are dogging on his performance. I mean, it certainly wasn't a performance that I thought was like unbelievable or anything, but I thought he did a really good job. And I said this on a couple of podcasts. I've been very excited to see him in this kind of role because he's great as Spider-Man. We all love him as Spider-Man, but a lot of the projects that he's done outside of Spider-Man, he's just been kind of playing the Peter Parker role, and I'm like, okay, this is a little tiring that it's the same thing over and over again, but I honestly thought he did a really good job, and I really loved his chemistry with Anne Hathaway, not just in this movie, but I've been really loving all the interviews with them
Yeah.
throughout this press tour and how protective she is of him and how he had been doubtful of himself as an actor, and he got to do this project where he got to showcase a bit more than just being Spider-Man, and it was a very wonderful performance. Certainly not up there for like best performances of the movie, but I thought
Mhm.
he was a welcome addition to this cast. And Anne Hathaway, oh my god, like again, a reminder why she is one of our great working actors, and she is unbelievable in this. The
Mhm.
emotion, just like the ferocity of her, like she is, oh god, she is one of the best. She really is becoming one of my favorite working actors, truly.
Yeah, and I was definitely bracing myself for, I think when one of the premieres, there was, all of the women in the movie lined up on the carpet, and everyone was like, "The women of the Odyssey! Oh my God, I can't wait for this!" And I was definitely bracing myself. I was like, not just as a Nolan dig, like, I know he, has not written great with women, but I'm like, knowing the story, I'm sure that the women are not going to get that much to do. Like, I know that they're going to be kind of, dipping in and out of the story, and have not too much screen time and everything. And so I think, on a case by case basis, I think for the most part they made the most of the time that they had, and both through the writing and through the performances, I think that they all showed up very well. Like I said, Calypso, Charlize Theron as Calypso was maybe the one where I felt like we needed a little more impact here, not because of her, just the way that it was written. But I mean, Anne Hathaway, I was glad that Anne Hathaway got as much to do as she did. Like, I was worried that just by nature of the story, she might just kind of have to be the wife at home, and she would kill it at that, obviously, 'cause she's great at everything. But and I do kind of like, I think that, I mentioned this with John Bernthal bringing like a bit more of a modern acting style. I kind of got a little bit of a modern acting style from her, and I liked it. I think that, this has also been a thing with the movie. Even before it came out, people were talking about the language of it and the idea of, not using, not number one, not being in British accents, which is number one anachronistic anyway. Like, these people were all Greek, they would have been speaking Greek. And so just the idea that we've associated English accents with something that's like old is our own hang up for movies. So I certainly didn't mind that we were all speaking in, an Americanized accent, the modern language and everything. Again, it's like we have sort of no frame of reference for something this old about how formally they would have spoken or anything. So I think that a modern performance style, like, it didn't clash at all for me. And I think that she goes there some, it's with her ferocity, with her, she's almost like sarcastic at times. And I just think it really works. I think that you so feel that she is, cornered here with very limited options, and she's trying to do her best. And again, you bought the chemistry between her and Matt Damon with very little time to establish that. I think that she's wonderful here. And then with the other female performances, like I said, I think Zendaya packs a punch in the small bits that she's in. Mia Goth didn't leave too much of an impression, but she also doesn't get much to do. And then of course we already talked about Samantha Morton is fabulous. So Lupita Nyong'o also not a lot of screen time. Would have
liked a bit more of Lupita. Yeah. Would have liked more of her.
Definitely.
And then, like, other people that are great, you brought up Himesh Patel before. He was outstanding in this. Very good supporting performance from him. We talked about Bill Irwin as the Cyclops. He's wonderful. I liked Elliot Page for his little time on screen. I've seen a lot of people talk about that performance in very interesting ways, and it's like, again, why are we putting down this performance? Just, it doesn't seem right that you guys are doing this. Ryan Hurst, you brought up before. He was very good. James Remar, who was the blind prophet in the Greek underworld, I liked him in this. Corey Hawkins, I liked him as well. And then I'm trying to think if there's anyone else. And then Pattinson, of course, fantastic. It's just,
as a duo with Corey Hawkins, I thought they were fantastic together.
Yeah, maybe Corey Hawkins should have been the protagonist in Tenet. Maybe he would have been better.
That probably would have worked a little better for me. I love Corey Hawkins and everything that I've seen. He didn't have much FaceTime or anything, but Benny Safdie, the moment when he speaks in the underworld, it's I think it's kind of helpful that he doesn't have this booming voice or anything. He just sounds like a regular dude, which is that's a cool impact when he's built up as this almost like God. And also the moment when they take off his helmet in the when we see his homecoming and everything, his beautiful curls or fall out. I don't know, he just had the right kind of look and everything. I think he's just was kind of effective, even though the whole point is that you barely see him.
Yeah. And then we should also take some time to highlight the technical elements of this movie. Oh. Where do we even start with this? Because
I don't know.
this is a masterclass across the board when it comes to imagery, score, editing, costumes, sets. The imagery. Oh my god! And you and I have both had the pleasure of watching this on IMAX 70. Beautiful, beautiful imagery. And I've seen some people be critical of the lighting, the harsh tones of the movie, and I don't know. I thought it looked great. And I'm not a cinematographer, so maybe I don't know anything, but I really loved Hoyt's imagery here. It's some of the best that he's ever put out for sure, and it's also some of the best imagery in a Christopher Nolan film.
Yeah, I would just little details I would shout out. Just anytime we see arrows being shot, the whistling noise is so I don't know. I feel like in other movies that's more like deepened or something. You actually hear the vibrato of the arrow moving through the air. Just seemed really. I don't know if that's what an arrow actually sounds like, but it sounded realistic to me. And yeah, especially on an IMAX screen, just. I mean, obviously there's the, bigger moments of action and everything, but just anytime you saw that ship out on the very, very vast ocean, it just felt like it went on for, the screen went on for miles. It felt like you were really there, just so effective. And I mean, I think it would be effective on any screen, but IMAX in particular, it just takes up your whole field of vision.
Yeah.
It's just really cool.
And then also cool, Ludwig's score. He did it again.
Did it again. So, it was kind of eclectic. You kind of get a very different vibe for different scenes going on, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is an Odyssey. You're going through these different stages.
I mean, I brought up the Hades sequence. That synthy track was unbelievable.
Cynthia on that, and then the siren song I really love, which
Uh-huh.
I didn't look it up or anything. It sounds kind of like a lute, like woodwind kind of thing. It's very like very much a lament. It kind of sounds very like sad and empty. And I think that's also echoed when he meets with Penelope at the end. Like I think that is, which again, it's like she's his siren. Like just beautiful character work being done through the music like that. Yeah, I thought it was just really gorgeous and like had some real character to it, which you never want the score to like overpower it, but it's just so like tied to these scenes, which ideally that's what you want.
Exactly. It's just like all the technical elements are so beautifully constructed, and Nolan is very meticulous with his detailing and everything. And Jennifer Lame's editing is remarkable. The movie definitely felt long, but at the same time, it's like I don't know what I would have cut out. I thought it was paced really well, and I think if the movie had been paced very, very quickly, it wouldn't have landed the way that it did. And
Yeah.
I like a slow burn. I'm a sucker for a slow burn if utilized properly. I thought that there were a lot of really cool choices done with the editing here, and I'm really glad with this new team that he's taken on with his projects. We brought this up on the Nolan draft. Hoyt shooting, Luick doing the score, and Jennifer Lame doing the editing. I really like that
Mhm.
trio that now he's been incorporating for the past few movies. And this is no shade to the people that he had early on in his career. Like Hans Zimmer used to do the music for his movies, and Wally Pfister would lens them, and Lee Smith would do the editing. And all that work will forever be adored by me. But with what they've done with Tenet, Oppenheimer, and this, I'm so impressed with the work utilized in Nolan's work right now. This
Yeah,
later
yeah,
stage of his career.
for sure, yeah, and to shout out the editing, like you're on kind of a tightrope here with the way that this script works and all of the cutting in and out and dipping into one person telling a story. I like the one moment when John Bernthal is telling Tom Holland the story and sort of saying like he could be in a prison, but what prison could hold a man like that? And like cut to Odysseus with Calypso, and it's like that sort of prison where he's being ensorcelled by this woman and everything. Like just smart moments like that. That it almost it's a little a little bit confusing, a little overwhelming on the first watch, but I think it rewards repeat viewings where you can kind of see everything fall into place. And some of the exposition is a little less hard to handle when you like see where the story is going.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we wrap up and give our final grade, let's get into Oscars assessment. This is pretty much the
Oh,
first major awards player that we're reviewing on the pod. We talked about Project Hail Mary a few months ago, and I definitely still think that that's going to be a big player this season. But strap in, I think that this is going to be maybe the biggest player of the season in terms of how many nominations it gets. I don't know if I have it predicted to win anything right now above the line, but I do think it's going to clean up very nicely below the line. So I'm going to list off some categories. And after I'm done listing, you could interject if there's any categories I miss or if
yep.
there's any categories you don't agree with. So right now, I have it nominated for the following. I think that this is a lock to be nominated for Best Picture. I absolutely think it's getting in. Christopher Nolan for director once again. That's absolutely happening. Adapted screenplay for sure. Even though the screenplay is not my favorite element of the film, I do think that it is coming along for the journey, and I do think that it is going to find a way of being in the Oscar 5.
I think it's one of my favorite Nolan scripts where that is sometimes a weaker element of his movies,
Yeah.
but in this case, it's a really smart adaptation.
Yeah, the when you look at it as an adaptation, there's some really cool liberties taken to it structurally
Mhm.
wise. His dialogue doesn't really bother me. I tend to gravitate my love for him as a director more than a writer. He's written plenty of
Mhm.
wonderful screenplays. I still think the Oppenheimer screenplay is the best that he's ever done behind the pen and everything. But this is absolutely getting nominated for that. For right now, tentatively, I have it nominated for two acting Oscars. I do have Matt Damon for Best Actor, and I do think Anne Hathaway is going to get nominated for Supporting Actress. Best Casting, Best Cinematography, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, Best Makeup and Hairstyling, Best Production Design, Best Original Score, Best Sound, and Best Visual Effects. That's what I have right now. So I have it for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 nominations. Is there anything that I missed? Is there anything that you don't agree with? What's your take on all this?
No, I do agree with all of that. Yeah, it's creeping pretty close to the record there. I maybe if some of the supporting actors get some rallying, if Samantha Morton or Leguizamo or someone, if they start getting support, it would have to probably be kind of a weaker year. It might be a little difficult to get multiple in when we're expecting a lot more movies to come. But yeah, I think that, and again, I don't know about wins, but I think this is gonna like really rack up the nominations.
Do you think that there could be a possibility where Christopher Nolan wins director again? Because I've had conversations with people where they think that if this film were to win anything but above the line, it could be for this. And a lot of people
Director.
have hailed this as some of the best direction of his entire career. And it's like, is he really going to win director again for this? Because I don't really buy this as a best picture winning film. But to be honest, if the momentum is there, if there's a lot of passion, I could see this walking away with picture. It's really tough to predict right now. We're only in July.
Mhm.
There's still so many movies that haven't come out yet and everything. So I don't know. Could he repeat the Oppenheimer and walk away with picture and director again?
I have just sight unseen from like anything in this year. I have just kind of penciled in Denis to win for Dune because I think that I think we're gonna kind of view the Dune trilogy as a Lord of the Rings esque thing, where I think that Dune is gonna perform a lot better at the Academy Awards this year than it's gotten a lot of nominations, but it doesn't always rack up the wins. And like we said, it's a competitive year for like big huge filmmaking with a lot of below the line competition. So I think these two are gonna really be duking it out. I don't know. At this moment, sight unseen for Dune, I'm gonna give Denis the slight edge. Because this would be a back to back for Nolan, and Denis has the narrative of not getting much recognition. And so I think and Dune is coming later in the year. That's going to kind of be fresher, as long as it's not like a mess, which I don't think it's going to be. I would kind of give that one more of the edge, but I think that Nolan is going to be good for the nomination here. This is too big to ignore. It's going to be so successful. So yeah, in for the nomination, but I would not commit to the win yet.
But I do think it's
I,
going to clean up in the technical categories for sure. But it's going to
for
be a
sure,
battle
yeah.
between this and Dune. It's gonna.
Yeah,
I think the below the lines is just going to be a battle between those two movies.
and I'm very curious to see if it's gonna shake out where like, we have one kind of cleaning up everywhere, or if they're gonna split the line. This kind of happened last year with One Battle and Sinners, where they both were pretty technical movies, and so that one had a nice kind of split. We kind of went back and forth a lot with Sinners taking some and One Battle taking others, and there's some surprises on the night compared to what we expected, and so yeah, I think this could be like a really really fun year for kind of awards watchers, and we've got other movies in the mix too. I mean, Project Hail Mary and who knows? Avengers Doomsday gonna be a major splash? Maybe not, but
Maybe at the
we got it.
Razzies, but not at the Oscars. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Is there anything else that you want to touch upon before we give our ratings?
I just think, we had Killian Murphy leading Oppenheimer after being a supporting player in so many Nolan movies. Matt Damon was supporting in that and now leading this. What supporting player from this do you want to see lead the next Christopher Nolan movie?
I want to see Samantha Morton or John Leguizamo. I want to see John
Mhm.
Leguizamo headline a Christopher Nolan film. I think that would
For
be
sure.
really, really cool. Be the lead of a Nolan movie. It would also be kind of fun to see Anne Hathaway be the lead of a Nolan movie.
Hmm.
He hasn't had a woman lead any of his films yet. I don't know. He hasn't, and I think if there's anyone to do it, it'd be her. I think she would be a perfect leading lady for a Christopher Nolan movie. And this is now
Hmm.
the third time that they've worked together. And I would love to see her be, more than just like the wife or the sidekick or the partner or Catwoman. Like, I want to see her be the de facto lead of a Christopher Nolan movie. I'm telling you, if Nolan were to do a horror movie, how cool would it be to see Scream Queen Anne Hathaway? That'd be so sick.
You should do a sequel to Mother Mary and
Oh
really
my
up the
God.
horror and make it a musical. Hell yeah, he could
Oh
do
my
everything
God,
at
a
once.
Christopher Nolan musical, a horror musical in
Let's do
IMAX 70 of
it.
cinephiles would wet their pants. Oh my
Hmm.
God. That would be a
Yeah, I would.
dream.
I love all of those choices. I would shout out Himesh Patel too. I think was so good in this, and like could definitely he's so great in Station 11 and a bunch of other things. So I
He's never
I
really
hope
been
his
the
star
lead of
rises.
like any movie except for
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Yesterday movie.
Yeah, I did, which I didn't see, but
It's okay.
yeah, yeah.
Not Danny
But
Boyle's finest outing.
I really like him. I hope his star really rises after this.
Yeah, he's great. He's very talented. I like him a lot as well. And but also it would be cool to see like Robert Pattinson be the lead of a Christopher Nolan
Yeah.
film. That'd be cool. But yeah, what what is Nolan gonna do next? I should we theorize that on air and then jump back to this conversation in 3 years when his next movie comes out? I think he's gonna. I think the next movie he should do is a horror movie. I think he should do that. But you did convince me with a musical. But like, what would that be like? It would probably deal with time, like with every other fucking movie he's made. So I don't
I
know.
would want to see
What do
him
you want to
do.
see him do next that he hasn't done yet?
I would. I mean, I would love a horror movie. Would love a musical. Sure, that would be great. Especially he's so like technical and everything. Some sort of like Bugsy Berkeley like super intricate, dance choreography or something. That would be cool. But I would kind of would like to see him scale down. I think that would be interesting if it's whether just a drama, if it's just fewer characters, even if it is a complex story like he likes to do. I just think that would be interesting. I think it would be cool to see him play it. Like he's conquered this mode of filmmaking. Like literally he can do it. He can do it on a technical level. He can bring in the box office. He can bring in the accolades. Like he's done it. And if he never wants to make another movie, we should be like thrilled to have his filmography already. But yeah, I would just like to see something that's a little bit on a smaller scale that could more maybe highlight like the acting, the writing, that kind of thing. That would be like that pivot would like really interest me.
I saw someone tweet someone not too long ago about how cool it would be for him to do like kind of like a journalist thriller, like
Hmm.
someone akin to like All the President's Men or
Yeah,
Spotlight
sure.
or something. That would be pretty cool. And he would, he could get like a stacked ensemble and everything. It could be like a better version of The Post, a movie I actually do very much like, but it would be really cool to see him
Whatever the
do
hell
something.
Aaron Sorkin is trying to direct next, just give it to Christopher Nolan
Oh
instead.
my God. Why didn't Christopher Nolan direct The Social Reckoning?
I would see it. That would be much better.
Well, do you remember when the Odyssey, before it was confirmed that that was his next movie, there were all these like theories that his next
Yeah.
project was going to be like. There was a talks that it was like a vampire movie or a an adaptation of the film Blue Thunder or the spy
Is that the
series, The
helicopter
Prisoners.
movie? That's what everyone
Yeah,
was
Blue
talking about.
Thunder
Yeah.
is the helicopter
Yeah.
movie, and then an adaptation of a show called The Prisoner, which is like about a British intelligence officer. But then when I read
Mhm.
that, I'm like, oh, that kind of sounds like Tenet a bit, where he leans into that spy espionage type of
Mhm.
genre, and he did a good job with that, and I would love for him to return to that. But yeah, kind of like a horror film, or hell, even if he did like this Blue Thunder, if you read the synopsis of this film, Blue Thunder, it sounds pretty cool. It does sound like something that
Mhm.
Nolan would have done, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, he could do whatever he wants and we'll all be seated day one for it. But yeah, I would definitely love to see him, kind of scale back and maybe do some of the bits smaller. But hey, if he wants to go big, we'll all be
Yes,
seated.
absolutely. I'm kind of most curious if he would go like dip back into historical fiction and adaptation, or if he would go with like a new script. That's kind of like a big what if too, because he's done both to great success. So
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I'm so excited for what he does next, and I'm so excited that this movie has been doing very well. I can't wait to see how it does throughout the rest of the year, awards wise, critically, financially. Very excited to see where the Odyssey goes from here on out. And yeah, we're both big fans of the movie. We both loved it very much. And what is going to be your rating?
I'm at a 4.5 stars out of 5 right now. I loved it. I love the experience of watching it. I'm excited to like chew on it a bit more and dig into it, like in the immediate future, but also in years to come. Especially anytime we assess Nolan's filmography. As we talked about here, like some nitpicks, some questions, some things that maybe could have been done better. But I don't know. I'd be curious to see as I live with the movie a little bit more if those kind of get smoothed over for me and this becomes like a 5 star for me. But yeah, as of right now, it's here. And I was taking a look at my Nolan rankings. Again, it's not I don't my feelings aren't completely solidified. This is still new, but I think this is probably floating somewhere around like 4 or 5 for me right now.
Mm.
So, what about for you? Your rating, and did it affect your Nolan rankings at all?
For me, it's also a 4.5 out of 5, a very high 4.5. It's really just those opening 30-40 minutes that definitely keep me from giving it the 5 star. But on a filmmaking level, it is a 6 out of 5, quite frankly. But I love the movie overall. It's right
You
now.
took
It's
off
it.
you took off a half a star because John Leguizamo tossed that puppy over the cliff at the beginning,
Well,
right?
that was partial
That
of
was
it. Like you could have just
that was
put
uncalled
you
for.
could have just put the puppy like down. You didn't have to toss it
Yeah,
over the cliff. Like, please, like
that's rough.
let's not get ahead of ourselves. But no, 4.5 out of 5 for me right now. Looking at my Nolan ranking, I have it currently sitting at number 7. Um, and I like everything that Nolan has done. My least favorite film from him is a 3 out of 5. So like, he has yet to make a bad
Yeah.
movie for me.
Yeah, I
But
agree.
yeah, I was very impressed. I knew that I would like the movie. I didn't know how much I would like it, and I'm so glad that I loved it. And I'm really happy that I got to see it a second time. Just one of the best films of the year right now. I don't see it staying in my top 10 of the year. Obviously, you never know. I could revisit this film again many months down the road, and I could like it even more. But for right now, it's safely in my top 10, but it's towards the bottom. I think it could get bumped out, but right now it's happily sitting in the top 10 of the year for me. So yeah, the Odyssey, big fan of it. Please go see it. Go check it out. And again, if you're near a premium theater or if you have to drive a bit, it's worth the trek. You're going to
Mhm.
experience something unlike anything that you have seen this entire year and probably will see this entire year besides Dune, of course. So, yeah, go see the Odyssey, go form your own opinion. And yeah, cinema's back, baby.
It's back. Go to the movies.
And with that, that is a wrap on today's episode of Some Like It Real. Thank you all for joining us. If you're interested in following along our journey, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Bryan Sutfield.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Vera Albarella and on Letterboxd at Alba_real_A.
And you can follow the show on all socials at Some Like It Real, as well as on YouTube at Some Like It Real. Be sure to subscribe and share it around and tune in every Monday and Thursday for a new episode of Some Like It Real on podcast platforms.
We'll see you next time.